I was trying to tell you before. I found someone.
This old guy? Sid.
He's already achieved so much, and yet he's still goal-oriented and still focused. And he has a 5-year plan.
What is it? Don't die?
It seems, Cole, that we are very, very close. Imminent, in fact, that Bill Belichick will be the next head coach of the North Carolina Tar Heels. Wow. If you had told me Bill Belichick was going to be the next head coach of the Panthers, I'd believe you more than him being the head coach of the North Carolina Tar Heels. Walking in with no college coaching experience, never dealt with college kids. I'm talking like 18-year-old, except for his girlfriend. No real experience with the transfer portal and NIL. I can't tell, Cole, if this is going to be awesome or if it's going to be a train wreck.
I'll tell you what will be awesome, Diesel. There were several of media members after the ACC media days passed that kind of said, other than Dabo, other than Mike Norvell, ACC media days this year were a little dull. There wasn't much going on. However, I can tell you that ACC media days, thank God for Bill Belichick, because what was that, July or August, I believe?
That was boring.
It was a very interesting week with not a lot of people coming in and out. Yeah, it was still ACC media days, but now all of a sudden, when you put in one of the winningest coaches ever in the history of the NFL into the college game, that ACC media day next year is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, but how many college games has he won?
That would be
0.
Well, on Xbox, maybe PlayStation.
Do we know if his girlfriend's going to sign up to be a lifetime cheerleader?
I don't know. I get it. It's shocking. I thought Diesel, when it all started, it was just a ploy. Doing your due diligence and
talk about Bill Belichick so that you can quietly search for the guy you really want.
But it's fun. I mean, it makes our job more fun, right?
I've been texting my cousin, who is a North Carolina graduate, and he's rolling his eyes at this, and he's saying, "Man, I won't believe it until he steps foot on campus." Look, I don't even have that big of a problem with Bill Belichick being a coach in the college ranks at a major Power 4 school.
Yeah.
The big problem I have, Cole, is if the extra little caveat turns out to be true. That little sidecar, that thing that's bolted to the side of the Bill Belichick motorcycle. It's kind of ugly. His son, I'm not calling his son ugly.
Well,
I'm just saying it's a weird thing, right?
Yeah.
The situation is ugly. To put a stipulation that my son will be coach and waiting. Now, there's got to be some way for North Carolina to get out of that. If Belichick, I don't even know what his name is. Do you know?
Yeah.
Is it Bill Jr.?
No. I wanted to say Josh, but I don't think that's right.
I don't even know if he's a bad coach himself. I don't know if he's qualified. I'm sure he is somewhat qualified, but come on. This is so on brand, Steven. This is so on brand for UNC to just try to go out and buy some attention, buy some headlines. I mean, they bought Roy Williams away from Kansas. I understand he was in Chapel Hill first. But, I mean, come on, man.
It's interesting from the standpoint of what does UNC view this plan going forward, Diesel, in terms of the longevity? I guess the better question is, how do they view the longevity of what could be with Bill Belichick? And again, we could see this thing to turn out that it actually works and Bill be successful and maybe make some of us eat crow. However, when you look at the trajectory, the future of a program, you want to be able to set a tone, Diesel, for the next 10, 15 years. And, that doesn't really seem that way. It just seems like it's going to be short-lived. And that's my biggest problem. However, if it does happen, I don't want to hear a word about LeBron and Bronny. I want everybody who brought the heat about LeBron and Bronny to bring the same heat and same energy to Bill.
It just feels like a publicity stunt. It feels like signing Tebow as a tight end, knowing that he's not going to make the team, but you're just trying to sell some jerseys, right? You're trying to get some people talking for a couple of years. I don't know.
Matt Kraft says, or Matt About Everything says, it's going to be funny if he starts ripping SEC talent away. And Diesel, the reality is he could now with the portal and NIL, right?
Yeah. I mean, look, we've seen a handful of coaches who spent time at the NFL level. Dowell Loggins is a prime example, just got hired as a head coach for the first time. And one of the main talking points in his introductory press conference was we need to modernize the way we operate with NIL and the transfer portal and try to get more in line with sort of an NFL model. That was part of his introductory speech as well, saying, hey, I negotiated deals with this player, and this player. I understand that it's not personal. I understand that it's just a business conversation. And maybe that does create a sort of a pipeline to the NFL with a coach who's used to dealing with things like this.
Diesel,
and it may help out a little bit.
Bill Belichick will be the 18th football coach to come from the professional ranks to the college ranks. Obviously, people know about Pete Carroll, Bobby Petrino, Jim Harbaugh, but there have been other coaches that have done this. So it's not unprecedented that coaches have gone from the NFL to the college ranks. However, it doesn't always work, and I think that's the risk that's involved. I think there is a lot of risk involved here.
Yeah, they're just two very, very different styles of football and two very, very different skill sets. Now, there's certainly an argument to be made that college football is coming more in line with the NFL model than it ever has. So, in that sense, it makes some sense. Like I said, I don't hate the hire of Bill Belichick. I think that's a phenomenal thing.
Yeah,
God,
you got one of the best coaches ever.
Yeah, especially if you can knock it out before this transfer portal really takes off and some of the best talent. If he can put together a hell of a transfer portal class and say, hey, I'm Bill Belichick. Yeah, that's Shane Beamer down there. Or that's Dabo Swinney down there. Or whatever.
Yeah.
But I'm Bill freaking Belichick. I've got how many Super Bowls to my name?
Yeah.
Come play for me in Chapel Hill.
Diesel, the biggest thing that I think will be worth monitoring will be what he said he plans to do. And that is turning UNC into a direct pipeline to the NFL. I understand that philosophy. I get that philosophy. But my biggest concern with that philosophy is if you don't have NFL players, you're not going to be able to do that, plain and simple.
Yeah.
UNC is going to have to get NFL players, and let's just call a spade here, Diesel. UNC is not known for pumping out NFL players every year. So they're going to if he maintains that, you would think that translates into success because if you have NFL talent, you'd think he'd be very good.
JB says, I'm quite sure Belichick will be picking his buddy Nick Saban's brain. Maybe. I mean, look, he's going to put smart people around him. I have no doubt that he's going to put smart people around him that can that have college experience and can help guide him. He's a smart guy, right? You don't win as many Super Bowls as he did without being a smart guy, without knowing football. The CEO role, I think that's really going to be his MO. I don't think that he's going to be a players coach. He's going to be a program coach. He's going to run a business down there, and maybe that ends up being successful. I'm not sure that he's got enough time. Because he is 72, that he's got enough time to go in there and implement all the changes. Maybe he can set something up so that the next person can pick up that baton, assuming he's doing the same things, and just run with it. But it's going to be interesting, and you're right, ACC Media Days just got infinitely more important and more newsworthy as we go into next year.
Before we move on, Dewey wants to chime in on the Bill Belichick conversation. What's up, Dewey?
Yes, I'm angry for two reasons. One, Bill Belichick needs to go sit down somewhere. He's old. He's washed up. He hasn't washed his hood in ages. He probably don't even wash his clothes. He thinks he's cool because he won a Super Bowl because of Tim Brady. Well, you know what? He needs to go sit down somewhere. And he don't even wash his clothes. And he's probably sitting on that committee, that elusive committee that no one seems to know anyone's names on it. And secondly, I'm going to go off subject for a second. The Atlanta Braves should be ashamed of themselves for letting Max Fried go. Brian Snicker should be fired, and Topless should be fired. And this is the end of the Braves not because Max Fried was any good, because he was decent and then he crapped his pants in the playoffs. But they don't pay their players. And then I tell you, the next one to go is Acuna, because look what they did to Juan Soto. The Braves only pay their players. Oh.
I didn't think we would hear fire Brian Snicker on December the 11th, Diesel.
Sell the team, move the franchise, Get him out of there. Dewey
Fire
says.
Brian Snitker from Dewey.
Wow.
Usually, ranges from
Yeah.
April to September,
Wrong
not
time of year.
December.
Wrong time of year.
Oh, you gotta love it.
Cole, speaking of business decisions, this was, in my mind, a pretty newsworthy story to start the day until Bill Belichick walked in and dropped a, hey, look at me bomb on this thing, Cole. But this comes from a post on Gators Season on Twitter by way of a reporter, Zach Abelverdi, who, by the way, is a senior writer for Gators Online, who reveals that junior linebacker Jack Pyburn wanted a series of guarantees from the University of Florida, or he would enter the transfer portal. Florida was unwilling to promise what he asked for, so he left for the portal, and I'm sure it went down kind of like this, Cole.
I want a hamburger, no, a cheeseburger. I want a hot dog. I want a milkshake. I want potato
You'll
chips.
get nothing like it.
So this guy is a big-time player for the Florida Gators. Big dude, going into his senior year, had a lot in front of him, and here's what he requested, Cole. Tell me which of these things might be the bugaboo for the University of Florida here.
Ooh.
He wanted $45,000 per month in NIL money, which equates to $540,000 a year. So half a million dollars. He wanted guaranteed starter at outside linebacker, guaranteed to be the starter at outside linebacker. He wanted a guarantee that he would play on third downs, and he wanted more snaps in the rotation.
Anything else, buddy? I mean, Jack, while we're at it.
Can I get you the cheerleaders' phone numbers while you're at it?
God, that is unreal. Did you say $45,000 a month?
Yep.
Is this
45K.
guy the Lawrence Taylor of college football? LT.
Remember, he's on what, a 6-5 team or a 7-5 team? What did the Florida Gators end up this year?
Diesel, I'm looking
Just above 500.
I'm looking now. He had 60 tackles, which is really good. 20 solo tackles, 40 assisted, 1 sack, 1 forced fumble, 1 interception this season.
So
Come
numbers,
on.
not like mind-blowing numbers, but for that he wanted $45K a month.
That is nuts.
Needless to say, Florida was disinclined to
They didn't do
acquiesce
it?
to his request. So Jack Pyburn is in the transfer portal, and he is available. Here's the thing, Cole. I'm petty AF. If I'm his linebackers coach, Ron Robertson, if I'm his defensive coordinator, Austin Armstrong, if I'm Billy Napier, head coach, I'm calling every single one of my colleagues in the SEC, and I am putting out APBs to everybody I know at a major university where this guy's going to want to go.
You might not have to.
And I'm making it very clear what kind of kid Jack Pyburn is. I am doing everything I possibly can to blacklist this guy.
I don't know. News
I'm
might
going
spread pretty
full
fast, Diesel.
Colin Kaepernick on this dude. I am doing what I can to lock him out of the sport because nobody puts baby in a corner.
If you were the next coming of LT, I would understand it. Here's what's interesting. 2024 stat comparison, Diesel. I told you this guy, Jack Pyburn from Florida, had 60 total tackles, 20 of them solo. How about a random player? I'm not going to tell you who it is. 70 total tackles, 42 solo tackles, which is more than double, 28 assists, 5 sacks, so 5 times the amount of sacks that Zach had. And this player plays for the Clemson Tigers and is a true freshman in Sammy Brown.
Oh, okay.
So, come on. What are we talking about here? You're not good. First of all, let me tell you this, and I don't care who disagrees or, we can have the promos about the coaches wanting to leave and coaches getting paid, but why shouldn't players? The bottom line is college sports was not intended to make $45,000 a month. You can disagree all you want. College sports was student first, athlete second. Nobody, I don't care how good they are, Diesel, nobody should make $45,000 a month at the college level.
And the truth is, Cole, this is unfixable. It's unfixable. Number one, it's activists like Rob Brown, and I'm calling him out because Rob Brown and I had this argument many times as the NIL thing was really starting to ramp up before it opened up and became a free-for-all. He wanted this. He wanted it. Well, what about the players? Coaches can go get whatever they want. Coaches can get paid a tremendous amount of money. Coaches can leave when they want to. Why can't players do it? Well, now they're holding their teams hostage. They're demanding. It's not even the money thing that really bugs me. I mean, what did Dylan Stewart get? $1.5 million to stay at South Carolina? We got JB on the stream saying a big rumor out there is that Alabama is going to offer Lenore Sellers $6 million to transfer to the Tide and bring his brother with him. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. Doesn't really matter at this point. It's not the money thing that bugs me because, look, a fool and his money are quickly parted. There's always somebody out there who's desperate enough to see his team win that he's willing to throw $1 million, $2 million, $3 million, $4 million, $5 million, $6 million at a kid to come and play in his team's favorite jersey for a year. And that is a fact. But it's the demanding of being a starter, demanding to play on third down, and demanding to have the most number of snaps that really is the bugaboo, because that is holding coaches hostage. Because if you've got Jack demanding this, and you've got Billy demanding this, and you've got Marshawn demanding this, and you've got that guy, boom, you are going to find a way to be in breach of contract, and you're going to get sued. Or the kid's just going to up and leave anyway, or he's going to shut down the way Juice Wells did, pout, even though Juice Wells had the money in his pocket. You can't get it back from him, even though he only played 2 games. And you're gonna find yourself in a really dark place as a program.
And I'll tell you what, a lot of people have said, even on this show, Diesel, about where we are, including this story with this kid from Florida. I believe Tom called in a few months ago and said this, and he said, look, with the talks about NIL, with the talks about the portal, the ratings of college football are up more than they've ever been. And listen, I get that. I understand that. But what I'm saying is very clearly, the ratings do not define the future of the sport in terms of what's good for the sport. I understand that the money is being handed out like hotcakes right now, Diesel. You can't get enough of it. But this $45,000 a month to play college football, I can tell you this. My prediction, it is going to end badly. It is going to end badly. You said it. There's no fix. The can of worms has been opened, and I don't see college athletics finding a fix for this because I have no faith in the NCAA. Something has to give. This story is just the start, and unfortunately, I don't know what the answer is.
Well, a texter here who, let me see. I don't think the texter put their name on their text. No, they didn't. Help us out there, guy. Next time you text in, give us your name. He says, it is fixable. It's a 4-year contract, and you have to buy out the NIL sponsors and the school to break it like a real employee, then it will be fixed. Well, question, how are you going to get college kids who currently hold all the leverage and they have the lawsuits, multiple, plural, lawsuits behind them? How are you going to get them to agree to limit their freedom of movement and to demand repayment for services not rendered? Because that's the big bugaboo right now. I know I've said that like 3 times. That's the problem with that, is that you can't restrict player movement right now. The NCAA did that for decades, and then as soon as they got a chance, somebody sued and got that struck down. And as soon as you try to restrict how much money they can make, you are now restricting how much money they can make, and that will get sued, and that will get struck down. And I'm not making this up. This is what's already happened. So you have to find a way. And the answer is not sharing $20 million a year in revenue with the players. They're getting that no matter what already. That's already been adjudicated in a court of law. They're getting that. And they can still make NIL money on top of that. Now, what will really fix this, maybe, is if you could get these big-time NIL collectives and sponsors to start putting these kids on 3-year contracts. Yeah. So if DJ Uiagalelei signs his deal with Dr. Pepper says, DJ, we'll pay you this amount for 3 years, but we want you to stay at your school at Clemson for 3 years. And that doesn't behoove them at all because Dr. Pepper doesn't care where DJ plays. They just want DJ's face on his deal. So they don't care where he goes. But maybe you could get the collective to say, hey, so-and-so, instead of that $1 million you were going to get this year, we're going to pay you $2.5 million for 3 years. And we want you to sign a contract that states you will stay at this school and not leave for 3 years.
Texter says it's not the NCAA, it's Congress. Another texter says they aren't employees. When they are, it's enforceable. Diesel and I have talked about that.
Well, what are you going to give up to make them employees?
You have to, that's a great question.
Yeah.
But
I mean, this is a negotiation here.
Yeah.
First of all, there's no collective bargaining. So it's not like there's a players association in college where all the student athletes have to abide by the agreed upon rules. Everybody can do their own thing. It is a free-for-all. How are you going to get thousands of college football players to all agree to the same set of rules? See, it's easy to just say, I'm going to wave this magic wand and make all this happen. Well, that's not real. That's not reality.
Going back to the Bill Belichick conversation, Bub texted into the show, 71307, keyword fan. Bub said, I believe his stance on the college level is to literally make it a program to find and make future NFL stars and players ready for the NFL. We'll get back into that conversation with Bill Belichick. On the other side, though, we will take our first look at South Carolina versus Illinois, and I will start the segment with a tweet that was sent out about 3 hours ago from Representative Josh Williams, who is a representative in Ohio. This is about Ohio State, the flag planting against Michigan. You don't want to miss this. We'll start with that next. Want to get to a very interesting tweet from a Representative Josh Williams in Ohio about a sportsmanship act. But before we do that, Blake wanted to get in on the conversation that we were having just a few minutes ago. Blake, you're in Wire to Wire. What's up, man?
Hey, I just got a question. Were y'all talking about 2021 when Dr. Pepper got him, or is they trying something new?
No, this was 2021, and it was just a hypothetical to illustrate the point.
Okay, I was just wondering because I was kind of confused. I didn't know that they had on beer goggles because he hasn't been a quarterback since he came into college football. How
No,
Florida State keeps him around, I don't know.
Blake, he's dressing up at a brand new position known as liability.
I mean, this is ridiculous. He doesn't even belong in a in a grocery store, much less on a football field. So I don't even think he could bag groceries.
He might want to check that out. Thanks for the call, Blake.
Appreciate you.
844-326-3663. And Tolos, I do want to let you know we have some news coming at the very beginning of the year. We'll let you know about it very soon regarding the phone number that you call and text. All I can say is now it's going to be a lot easier. It's going to make things a lot more simple. And our goal is to simplify things around here as much as possible. At least that should be our goal. So stay tuned. But if you interact with the show, make sure you're TOLOing, which stands for turn on, leave on, to hear this news here in a couple of days before we take a break for the new year. But, Diesel, before we get into South Carolina, Illinois, Representative Josh Williams 3 hours ago on Twitter is catching a lot of heat for this tweet. Representative says, I am proud to introduce the OHIO Sportsmanship Act to make flag planting at midfield a felony in the state of Ohio. Behavior that incites why can I not read it without laughing? That incites violent brawls and puts our law enforcement officers in danger has no place on the football field. And to say he's catching heat, Diesel, would be a little bit of an understatement.
Well, if we can't prosecute a president for starting an insurrection, how do we prosecute an 18-year-old college kid for doing the same thing?
A felony at midfield. Oh, my gosh. Is that not the craziest thing you have ever heard? Again, he's getting a lot of backlash.
Very on brand for Ohio State.
Yeah, it is.
Very.
And, again, it's something needed to be done. You and I talked about that, but we weren't really anticipating that be the outcome. All right, Diesel, our first look at South Carolina versus Illinois as the Gamecocks are heading to Orlando on New Year's Eve. They have some time to get ready for Illinois out of the Big Ten, a team that was 6-3 in conference, Diesel, this season. When you look at this team, they made a bowl game. They had a good season. So obviously you have to prepare for them the same way you do everybody else. However, when you turn the page back, they are, in most statistics, Diesel, somewhere between middle of the pack and maybe a little above average when it comes to what happened in the Big Ten. A Illinois team that averaged 28.9 points per game. They allowed 22.1 points per game, which was very good, and an average of 365.5 yards per game. So, again, it's a good Illinois team. I just don't know that it's a great Illinois team that we're talking about for the Gamecocks.
Cole, I think the South Carolina defense is going to feast on this Illinois offensive line. They are going to run roughshod over this offensive line. Look, Illinois has got a decent quarterback, Luke Altmaier, 21 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. He takes good care of the ball. He just doesn't throw a lot of touchdowns in the grand scheme of things. Here's the thing, Cole. He was sacked 31 times this year. And I looked up their offensive line. It's a bunch of upperclassmen, a bunch of juniors and seniors, except for the right guard, Brandon Henderson. So it's not that they're young, Cole. It's just they're not that good.
Yeah.
And man, I'm telling you, Kyle Kennard is going to go nuts on this team. They're going to be getting sack after sack after sack in this game.
They rank 9th in the Big Ten in team rushing. When it comes to passing the football, Diesel, they rank, let's see here, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So they, again, middle of the pack in conference when it comes to rushing and passing the ball. They won their games, right? They beat, let's look at their wins. And stop me when you hear one that jumps off the page that's impressive to you. Eastern Illinois, Kansas, which Kansas is good now, but Kansas did not start the season well, right? They were not ranked for the majority of the season. They are ranked 19th now. So that, 6-point win, not really impressive back in September. Central Michigan.
The Chippewas.
Yep. Nebraska. I think that's it's a good win, right? I wouldn't classify it as a great win, but I think it's a good win. Lost to Penn State. They beat here's where I draw caution. Diesel, it took overtime and 50 points to beat Purdue.
Ooh.
How bad do you think South Carolina would beat Purdue?
Ooh.
20, 25, 28, 30?
More like 40. Honestly,
Me too.
I think they South Carolina would score in the 50s. Purdue would score in the 10s.
And it took overtime for Illinois to beat Purdue. Again, 50-49 was the score. They did beat Michigan. That's not saying a whole lot this year.
That might be more points than Purdue scored in every other game combined this year.
It had to be close. It had to be close. They lost back-to-back to Oregon, back-to-back to Minnesota, and then they did finish the season, Diesel, with 3 straight wins, Michigan State, Rutgers, and Northwestern, and all of those games were close, especially the Rutgers game, 5-point win. Northwestern was a 10-point win. So, again, we're talking about a middle-of-the-pack Big Ten team that probably wouldn't win many games in the SEC. With South Carolina's schedule, I don't think they'd fare well at all. So when it comes to the Citrus Bowl, JD says it. He says Gamecocks will win the Citrus Bowl. Can't spell citrus without USC. I think, Diesel, if South Carolina brings their absolute A game, you could be talking about a big win.
Yeah, it's another big reason why I don't like automatic tie-ins and the way they do automatic tie-ins. I think they should be using more of a metric-based system to match teams together so that you get good bowl games. This is going to be a blowout. It's going to be essentially an unwatchable game. It's going to be low down on Kelley Ford's watchability scale unless you just want to watch Lenore Sellers go off, unless you just want to see Rocket Sanders try to hit his 1,000 yards for the season, because I believe I heard that he's like 110, 115 yards short of reaching 1,000-yard season. Congratulations to Rocket if he gets it. I would hope that they would run the ball and help him get those numbers to make him 1,000-yard back. Because certainly that helps when it comes time to get ready for the NFL draft. But these are two very, very different football teams that are separated by a lot of ground in the power rankings. I think Kelley has South Carolina ranked just outside of the top 10, and he's got Illinois ranked somewhere in the mid 40s, upper 40s. So these are two very different football teams, and I wish that these automatic tie-ins would try to match teams that are a little closer in FPI, in power rankings, whatever, instead of just saying, all right, we'll take the third best team out of the SEC and we'll take the third best team out of the Big Ten, because that doesn't necessarily mean that they're the same quality of teams.
And Diesel, to your point, I believe you said 119. Is that right? 119 is the number that Rocket needs to break 1,000 or to hit 1,000. He has gone over 100 yards this season 1, 2, 3 times, 143 yards against LSU, 144 yards against A&M, and 126 yards against Vandy. So the 119, he's done it 3 times. And again, against the Illinois defense that seems a little suspect. Let's look and see.
And the fact that he's doing it with Lenore Sellers, who's so good with his feet.
Yeah.
You know, a normal quarterback is handing it off and saying, hey, running back, go get some yards.
20 times a game.
Yeah.
And again, you look at Rocket, sometimes, Diesel, he doesn't get 20 carries a game. I'll tell you this. The last time he got 20 carries a game was A&M. How many times do you think he's gotten 20 carries a game this season?
I'm going to say 3.
2.
Wow.
2. So to your point, he's not running as much. I remember when Spurrier had Lattimore, he said one time in a post-game press conference that Lattimore has got to get the football 20 times a game. And again, when Lenoris is able to run, you're able to do some design draws with the quarterback that take away some from Rocket. Now, defensively, here's an interesting stat for you, Diesel. In the Big Ten, Illinois ranks second in total defense in the Big Ten. 29 sacks, 50 tackles for loss, 12 interceptions. So look, this is an Illinois team, that Illinois defense, that is very opportunistic. And when you look at what they did in conference, it was very impressive. In conference, Diesel, looking at just the conference games, Illinois ranked numero uno, number one in total defense this year in 2024. So offensively, not great. Defensively, pretty good.
How many big explosive offenses were there in the Big Ten this year? I mean, Oregon, Oregon is there. That certainly makes a lot of sense there. But I mean, how many prolific offenses? Yeah, Penn State is more of a ground and pound, low scoring kind of team. Did they have anybody else? I mean, that was really just lighting up the scoreboard week in and week out. Maybe Ohio State. So, and they didn't play Ohio State. So I don't think they were playing that many insanely good offenses this year.
They don't rank high when it comes to big play. They rank 15th in the Big Ten in big plays in 2024, 15th in the Big Ten when it comes to third down conversions. So they're a team that has talent, especially on that defense. But boy, there's a lot of holes and there's a lot of areas of liability for Illinois.
JD says, just like I said, all schedules aren't the same. That's true, JD, and I plan on asking Kelley Ford a question a little bit later on. We're going to have him on in less than an hour at 4:20. Ask him, how do we normalize, or what metric would he like to see used to sort of normalize schedules as much as you can? Yep. Instead of doing this, hey, we're going to put your schedule together for 2 years. It's going to be this way in year one, and we're going to flip-flop the home and way for year two. They need to do more of a metric-based scheduling system to make sure that everybody in the conference has as close to a relatively equal strength of schedule as you can. If you want to do it like this, Cole, if you want to break down the conference into quads, and you'll get this many quad 1, quad 2, quad 3, quad 4 teams from last year. If you want to do it based on projection, if you want to do it based on preseason coaches polling, however you want to do it. Right. But you got to try to make things as equal as possible. And that's how you have some teams that don't play anybody.
Before we run to a break, Taylor wants to weigh in on the conversation. 844-326-3663. Taylor, what's up, man?
Yeah, I was just curious. Is it can I go back to what you guys were talking about with Bill Belichick at the beginning?
Yeah.
I mean, I've just been thinking about it. I think he's going to hate working with college-age kids. I mean, if you think about 18-year-olds and like how many mistakes they make, and they get in trouble and they party, and they also want money, and they're coming from high school into college, where I almost think there's even more to prove because there's so many prospects out there and there's so many transfer people going into the portal. I think there's just I don't know if it's a good fit for him because he's used to dealing with professionals the last 40 years. He's dealing with guys that are not 18 to 24, give or take. He's dealing with guys that are 24 to 40. And I don't know if that's a very good fit for Belichick. And I think that is where he might really struggle, is the professional side of things, that it's really hard for kids to go from being high school kids to this is your job. You're making, if they're paying somebody, I heard you on an earlier segment talking about paying somebody $6 million, for somebody to transfer there for 1 year. I mean, you better be living and breathing football. And I think that's going to be a huge struggle for him to connect with the kids on doing that.
Yeah, Taylor, to your point, it may be more of we're bringing in Bill Belichick to professionalize our systems behind the scene. I mean, yeah, you want him to win football games, but if you're trying to professionalize how you do what you do, then he may certainly be able to make some strides there. But then again, all it takes is him leaving and hiring a different head coach who wants to reshape the program in their own image to undo everything that he's done.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that, yes, it definitely is going to be a huge jump for these college programs to become professional programs. I just think that it comes into two places. I think, yes, he can do that because he was a GM for the Patriots, but at the same time, too, he's still dealing with kids. He's still having to deal with personalities, and there's no consistency with him, or the college program right now. I mean, think about it. You can transfer after 1 year. At least when he's signing guys, he knows it's a 3 or 4 year deal, or sometimes even 5, or, he can kind of negotiate from there. And kids just getting more money to be offered to go to the NIL. I'm wondering if he's going to have the patience for it. Just because I said he's been dealing with professionals. I think he was an assistant coach at 23 or 4. So maybe his dad at being at the Naval Academy, taught him some things, and obviously talking with Saban. But look at Saban. He got out of it. He got out of the NIL era. He didn't want to be a part of it. He and Saban are very close, and I think that might speak to what he would like versus not like. But I do agree with you that that's like the other side of the coin that he does need to work on, is the professionalism of it.
Hey, Taylor, thanks for the call, man. Appreciate you, number one, listening to the show as well as calling in. Really good call there. But it's interesting. I think we'll have to wait and see, Diesel. Here's what I feel like. We could be wrong. It could work out. But I would say if you ask me to spend my hard-earned money to bet, I don't think it's going to work out.
Cole, when we come back, I want Utolos also to be answering this question during the break by texting in 71307. Start your text with keyword fan. If your coach was suddenly not your coach anymore, he got fired, he walked away, he mysteriously quit without warning, who would you realistically want to replace them? We're going to have a short segment next, so let's just mess around, have some fun. Who would you want to replace your coach if you had to right now? That's next on the Fan Upstate. I can't think of a head coaching candidate that is a bigger departure from what you had to what you're about to get with Mac Brown and Bill Belichick. Mac Brown, fun, affable dude, players coach. He's out the door. You bring in a guy that you can get about 3 words out of an entire press conference. I just don't fathom this change from Mac Brown to Bill Belichick. I just don't get it.
And I didn't think Mac was any good on the back end of his career.
Oh, well, I mean, it never works, right? The sequel always sucks,
true.
right? But if your coach got fired, got plucked, walked away, mysteriously quit without warning, Steve Spurrier, who would you realistically want to replace them, Cole? Who would you like to say, you know what? I think that guy embodies who we are. That's a guy that I would like to look at. I mean, what if Shane Beamer just poof disappeared
would be bad,
as South Carolina's coach? Yeah, it would be bad.
I would say for Clemson, if you were asking me from a Clemson standpoint, I'd like to have Jamie Chadwell at Clemson.
Ooh, that's a departure right there. He's left just about every school with some spurious situations.
I like it. I like to try it though. And then for Dallas, nothing's worked, so I say hire Dion. Let's try it. Nothing's worked.
No.
I mean, it doesn't matter.
No.
It's a dumpster fire already anyways. Let's hire Dion and just see what happens.
So here's who I like for South Carolina. I like Brent Key at Georgia Tech. I think he's pulled that program back from the brink of severe mediocrity. And he's like one of those tough, no-nonsense, hard-nosed guys.
He is.
Which would be a culture shock difference from Shane Beamer. It'd be kind of going back to the Will Muschamp era, because he was not the most fun guy to be around.
Yeah.
But I think Brent Key would really bring this aggressive, visceral style of football to South Carolina that I think would work out, obviously, really well in the SEC.
Texter says if Marcus Freeman left Notre Dame, I would want Al Golden to take his place. Tolo Steve says let Ryan Day walk and bring back Urban or Mike Vrabel. I'll finish it there, Steve. Mike Vrabel's an interesting one when you talk about the NFL coaching jobs because he doesn't have a head coaching job right now. But for Shane Beamer, you say Brent Key. Mm-hmm. I'll tell you what, I like that. I would like to see Brent Key continue to put together some continued success, some consistency, Diesel, before I pull the trigger on him. And again, that's no insult to him. You and I talked to him at ACC Media Day, and he's fantastic. He's really – you said it. He's locked in. He doesn't get too high, doesn't get too low. I think he'd be a really good replacement.
Here would be my only concern is that Brent Key is a program builder to this point, because Georgia Tech has always been – I mean, they've gone from running the triple option like 10 years ago to where they are now, winning 6-7 games a year.
Yeah.
So can he pick up the baton and keep running with it? That's a great question. I mean, certainly when you got all the resources you could want and a fan base that's rabid, it certainly helps.
JB says on the YouTube stream, give me Cignetti from Indiana if Beamer was gone.
Ooh.
And again, that's an interesting one as well.
Do you think South Carolina fans would mesh well with a Yankee?
I don't think so.
I like John Summerall at Tulane
now
for Clemson.
To be fair, that's interesting. Cignetti's won everywhere he's been.
Yeah, he has.
And again, he might be a good coach, but is he a good fit?
Yeah, but how much has winning a lot of games, not all your games, but a lot of games, how much has that helped Brian Kelly at LSU? Because his personality couldn't be any more different from southeastern Louisiana either.
And I'll tell you the problem the conversation, Diesel, that we're not having. The problem with this conversation, if Shane Beamer continues to take South Carolina to, I'm going to call it unprecedented heights, and win 10 games, and do like Spurrier did when he won 10 games 3 years in a row, if he continues to elevate this program, the problem is when he leaves, you're not going to be looking for a program builder. You're going to be looking for a national championship caliber head coach, and there aren't many of those out there.
Well, I think Shane Beamer has changed the way that the staff, the board of trustees down at South Carolina operates. I think they know they have to pay up. They have to pay whatever it takes to keep him. You can't, as long as he keeps winning games like this, and if he can get you over that hump and get you to an SEC championship, pay him whatever he wants.
That's right.
Don't mess around. Don't try to be cheap. Pay him whatever he wants because he's worth it.
And we will have some breaking news in our daily wires that's not so breaking that happened yesterday evening with their offensive coordinator. So stay tuned. Turn it on, leave it on. 4:45, we'll get into that. But on the other side, 4 o'clock segment, first of all, we need you Tolos to stick around because Diesel and I are going to sharpen our pencils. We're going to get right down to it because we're both taking some time off around Christmas, and you never know if we'll get to this next week with it being a short week for me. But we've got to make our official college football playoff predictions. You Tolos, let your voice be heard as well on the text line and the phone lines. We'll do that next. We've got Kelley Ford, K Ford ratings coming up in about 20 minutes. Tolo, stick around. Don't go anywhere because Kelly's always going to bring the heat. We had 5 o'clock fight, 3 rounds at 5 o'clock today. We need you to participate. Also, 5:20, one of the most important segments of radio we will ever do. I posted a question on the Fan Upstate Facebook page this morning and got your submissions for the best Christmas movies ever. Diesel, we have a 24-round Christmas movie bracket that we're going to have to get some help from the Tolos to decide the winner. We'll do 1 round per day.
Yeah, but which movie is going to be complaining that they got left out, and they're going to want to try to change the criteria to ensure that they get in?
A little college football play. I see what you did there. Chris Phillips, SEC Unfiltered, 5:45. We'll get into a little mock draft in the 6 o'clock hour as well and take a peek at the college basketball top 25 and see where Clemson is. Even though Clemson is off to a fantastic start, I don't know if they are ranked properly as of right now. Obviously, that could change with a big win, or if they can get a win on Saturday in a very big game against Memphis at 11 o'clock in Little John. Daily Wire's coming up in about 45 minutes on the show. But, Diesel, let's get right into it. You and I have to go pencil to paper here and make our predictions. You have made yours on our show rundown, which only you and I can see, by the way, but I haven't because I don't know.
You don't know
I
yet.
don't know yet. I still don't know. Half of these I went through this morning and thought, yeah, I could see that happening, but I also could see that happening. So here is our official predictions for the college football playoff. Tolos, want to hear from you as well, where we are wrong and where we are right. 71307. Start your text with the word fan. We're also live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. All right, Diesel, round 1. In what I think is going to be the most interesting game of the first round, you and I a couple of weeks ago talked about the possibility of this game being played in the playoffs. Well, we turned out to be right because it is. Tennessee will be playing Ohio State in the first round of the college football playoff. This one fascinates me. Again, I have no idea who to pick here. What say you?
Yeah, this is kind of a coin flip game. I think this is the closest matchup, and it's the 8-9 matchup. These are theoretically 2 very even football teams. Who's going to be more physical? I think the answer to that question is Tennessee is going to be more physical. Yeah, I mean, Ohio State's got great players. So does Tennessee. But who plays a more smash mouth brand of football? Now, the home environment there in Columbus is going to be a big deal.
It's going to be cold.
Ohio State's going to be cold. Chris Phillips, he posted a video this morning from the chairlift claiming that cold doesn't bother them anyway. So I think Tennessee is going to get this one done by being more physical. And I don't know if they're practicing in a meat locker somewhere or what, but they're going to be practicing in the cold. I think Tennessee gets this one done in a close game, 1 possession, 7 points or less. I got Tennessee beating Ohio State and subsequently Ryan Day getting fired.
Oh, boy, would that make for good radio, right? Diesel, here's what I do not understand about this matchup. This game right now, according to Vegas, Ohio State's favored by 7.5 points. And for those that don't understand sports gambling, 7.5 points for 2 good teams is a lot of points. I would take Tennessee plus 7.5 today, Diesel. Again, that doesn't mean them winning the game, but covering 7.5, I anticipate this game, to your point, being close, being competitive. However, here I asked 2 questions. The first question that I ask regarding this game is something you brought up. Number 1, does the temperature and do the conditions play a part in Tennessee's offense being a little bit less explosive than normal? Number 2, are players playing for their job in this game and are coaches coaching for this job? And then number 3, after what happened with Ohio State and Michigan, the pressure that's on Ohio State, do they allow that pressure to be what fuels them to a win, or does the pressure make them fold like a cheap tent? Diesel, this one's the hardest to pick. You pick Tennessee. I'm going to pick Ohio State.
Really?
I'm going to pick the favorite in this game for the reasons that I just brought up. I think Ryan Day might feel a level of pressure that he's never felt before. I just feel like that when you look at Ohio State, they've underwhelmed at times. They have the talent to go to toe-to-toe with anybody. Another part of the reason that I'm picking them, Diesel, they were my national championship pick, and I looked like a dummy if they got booted in the first round.
Does beating Tennessee, an SEC team at home in the playoff, do much to cool off Ryan Day's seat, or is it entirely based on whether or not you beat Michigan?
It does until the next game, right? I mean, it does.
You get a week.
You get a week.
Yeah.
You get a week. And again, until you play Michigan, you're exactly right. Do I have a ton of faith in Ohio State? No, I really don't. But for whatever reason, these are one of two things are going to happen. Vegas is going to be right, or number two, you're going to be right, and Vegas is going to be completely wrong, and Tennessee could go over there to Columbus and wax them. I think this is the most fascinating matchup we have. Diesel's going Tennessee. I'm going Ohio State. What do you think, Texters? Tolo 71307. Texter says Alabama wins it all. Oh, wait. Love the show, guys. Appreciate you, Texter. Texter says, well, the Big Ten's better than the SEC, so there's that. Diesel, that's a fun one. We'll go back to that, I'm sure, before that game's played. Indiana, Notre Dame. I'm going to save our team for last in the first round. Actually, you know what? For making it easy, let's go ahead and get to it. On the same side of the bracket, Clemson, Texas. Who do you like in that one?
I like Texas. In that one. They have a phenomenal pass defense. That's all Clemson can do right now is throw the ball because their running back room is so depleted. I'm not sure if a healthy Phil Maffa would really change that much for Clemson. I think it'd make a tighter game. I might be convinced that Clemson could go 50-50 with Texas if they had a healthy running back room, but they don't. And so you're going to put it all on Cade Klubnik, who has found a lot of success running the ball. But when they know you can't run because they know your RB1 is hurt, your RB2 is hurt, now you're going down the line to 3-4, they're going to sell out to try to come after the quarterback. They're not going to respect anything play action because they know you're actually not actually going to hand the football off. I think, and then of course that means the ball hawking Texas defense can really tee off on you, try to pick balls off and get control of this game early. So I think Tennessee wins this one. I don't think it's particularly close. I mean, if Clemson kept it to 2 scores, I'd say, all right, that's a fine performance.
Again, I might change my score prediction. I'm thinking right now 24-14. Texas,
sounds about right.
Somewhere in there, Diesel. 1.5 to 2 scores. Again, you said all the reasons that I'm picking Texas as well, so I don't have to reiterate them. Texas is the better team. They have the better defense in my mind. They have the better coach in my mind. They have a really good quarterback, and
they got a quality backup if that quarterback goes down.
Might be a better.
Like if they had to throw Vizina in there, what would you say?
Yeah, you wouldn't be thrilled.
No.
I do think Clemson keeps it close. However, to your point, the run game, if I'm getting on a plane and I'm going to Austin, Texas with no running back, I'm literally scared out of my mind. I'm scared out of my mind, Diesel. And again, that's the sole reason. I'm picking Texas. I don't think they can do it.
If that's the case, Cole, I think you need to get real creative with how you move players around in the backfield, with how you motion wide receivers and maybe some reverses and things like that
and maybe Adam
put
Randall
the ball in the hands of playmakers.
You know, Adam Randall has taken a seat for a large majority of the season because of other players. He had that good kick return the other night against SMU. Maybe I don't know. I don't think that's a legit option, but the running back room scares the heck out of me.
What was it that David Hood said that he's been hearing people say, put Sammy Brown in there?
Yeah, that's real smart. Put your best player on the field at running back so he can get hit and tackled every play. That's really smart. So you and I do agree with Texas over Clemson. Mm-hmm. Let's head over. You want to head over to the other side, or do you want to finish the left side?
Let's go to the let's stay with that side of the bracket.
Finish the left side.
Yeah.
So going back to the top left, you would have Tennessee, Oregon, which would be a great game in my mind. I would have Ohio State, Oregon, Diesel in the second round of the left side of the bracket. Who would you have advancing in that bowl game?
I'm going scratch there. I would have Oregon beating Tennessee, probably fairly easily. I like that score and a half, 10-point, 14-point margin for Oregon over Tennessee. I mean, they've been consistent all season long. I know the Boise State game kind of gives you reason for pause. I know the Wisconsin game where Oregon didn't look particularly great. That gives you reason for pause. But I think on the whole, over the course of the season, they've been far and away better than everybody they've played. And I think they would just outscore Tennessee. And Tennessee be able to score to stay kind of close, but not sticking with them.
Oregon's good. Oregon's good. Mad about everything. I just missed that one. He said Clemson 27-17. Going to be shocked with the physicality the Tigers bring. Madcraft or mad about everything, calling for an upset there. Diesel, I would have Ohio State and Oregon, a rematch. I would have Ohio State winning this time. So as bad and as down as the Buckeyes are right now, I've got them winning 2 of the first games in the college football playoff, advancing to that third round with a chance to go to play for it all. You and I would both have, in what I think would be a good game, Texas, Arizona State. Again, I'll admit, I didn't follow them much this year at all. I watched the game Saturday where they just demolished Iowa State. This one's a fun game in my mind, but who do you like?
Well, what's that old narrative? They don't play defense in the Big 12. What happens when you go against a team that actually does play good defense? And look, Cam Scatterbo is awesome. Arizona State has really good wide receivers. I think you can kind of make them one-dimensional and make them run the football. And can Cam Scatterbo by himself beat the Texas Longhorns? I'm not sold.
He's
so
really good.
I would have Texas advancing past Arizona State.
So are there 2 losses? They lost to Texas Tech and Cincinnati. Ugh.
God,
those aren't good losses, Diesel.
Might save Scott Satterfield's job.
I would, you know what? I want to have the Cinderella story here. I want to pick Arizona State, but I can't because
using your brain, not your heart.
Yes, that's right. I'd go Texas over Arizona State in that one, and then Diesel, you would have Texas and Oregon, right?
Yep.
I would have the third round.
I would have Oregon winning that football game, kind of the same reason I have Oregon beating Tennessee, just outscoring them. And at that point, you start putting pressure on Quinn, and you start putting pressure on maybe Arch if they put him in there. Maybe you force some mistakes. I like Oregon to get it done.
I would have in the third round Ohio State and Texas, which I think would be a fun game. It'd be a game of Ryan Day, Steve Sarkisian, two kind of totally different styles clashing. Because I'm going to stay true to my pick preseason, I would have Ohio State defeating Texas in the third round, which would put Ohio State. Don't laugh. Don't laugh.
Have to do that.
I know, but it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun because it's going to happen. I'm willing our Ohio State fans. I'm making them in a better mood today.
You're just
Steve,
sucking up.
Mike. That's right. That's right. So I'm at Ohio State advancing out of the left side of the bracket. Diesel for a chance to play for the national championship. You would have again. Texas.
I would have Oregon. Oregon making the national championship from the left side of the bracket.
So Diesel would have Oregon. I would have Ohio State. All right, to the right side we go. Indiana, Notre Dame. Another tough one in my mind to pick. You would have
Notre Dame.
Me too.
Notre Dame. Yeah, they're better on defense than Indiana. Indiana can score like crazy, but against weaker defenses, I think Notre Dame kind of shuts that down. Wins this game. It may be a slightly higher scoring game. Notre Dame can outscore just about anybody. Right. So I think this one ends up is probably like a 42-38 kind of game. But I think Notre Dame wins it.
I'm with you there. As well. Penn State, SMU first round. This one is played at Penn State. Diesel, you and I disagree with this one.
I have SMU shocking Penn State.
Okay.
And knocking them out and getting James Franklin fired.
Well, I have James Franklin making me eat crow and beating SMU in the first round. So we would both have Notre Dame playing Georgia on the right side of the bracket. Would you be ballsy enough to take the Irish?
In that one, no. Yeah. No, I would not have that. Georgia, they're just going to outpower Notre Dame.
All right, in the bottom right, let's see. I would have Penn State, Boise State, 2 states. You would have SMU, Boise State.
2 horses.
2 horses, that's right. So the horses collide, and that game would be obviously it'd be a bowl game, a neutral site game.
So
Boise State, SMU.
I'm not a horse person. Is a pony necessary? Is it just a young horse or is it a female horse?
No, I think it's that's a good question. That's a great question.
Does a pony refer to all young horses, or is it a female horse? It's gotta be. I think it's all just young horses.
I should know that.
Yeah, you should.
Pony,
he lives in Texas.
According to Google, a pony is not a young horse, but rather a small breed of horse. So it's a different breed that stays small throughout its life, so it never grows. It's a pony forever.
So they're the SMU little horses?
That's right, little horses. God. Yep.
Give me the Broncos all day. No, I think that's gonna be a fun football game. Just two conflicting styles, the way they play. I would have in that game Cole. I would have where do I have that? I have Boise State beating SMU.
Ooh, okay.
A G5 advances to the quarters, baby. Semis. Excuse me, semis.
And that'd be huge. And now you look back on that right corner and think, how big is that buy for Boise State, right? The opportunity for them not to get eliminated. I would have to go Penn State. I'm making myself I'm walking all over my words. I'm going Penn State over Boise State. You know what? Forget it. Screw it. I'm going to go with you. Spur of the moment, I'm going to change mine, and I'm going to say Boise State would beat Penn State. I love Ashton Jean-T Diesel. He's been fantastic. Give me the bigger horses, if you will.
Yeah.
You and I would both have – no, I'm wrong here.
I would have Georgia, Boise State in the
semis. Georgia, Boise State. I would have Georgia. No, we would both have Georgia, Boise State. Okay. And you would pick
Georgia.
Yeah.
So my national championship is Oregon, Georgia.
And mine is Ohio State, Georgia.
Interesting.
Ohio State versus Georgia in the Natty is where I'm going there, Diesel.
And who's winning the SEC, the big bad SEC, or the Big Ten that actually has 20 teams?
I've believed all season long that Ohio State has had the talent to go win it. They, down the stretch, have not looked good, did not look good against Michigan. You know what? I don't care who you ask. You can find the smartest football guy in the room to explain that loss. I don't think they'll be able to do it. You can't explain that one. I'm hoping for Ohio State's sake that was just a blur, right? It was a bad game. Ohio State has Diesel. They have the most expensive roster you could ever imagine.
Yeah, but what does that mean for Ole Miss? They got a really expensive roster too.
I think they could do it. I'm just not super confident in Ohio State winning. Now, because it was my preseason pick, I'm going to stick with it, and I'm going to will the Ohio State Buckeyes to a national championship. Diesel would have.
I've got Oregon winning the national championship, 38-27 over Georgia. So both of us, independent of each other, Cole, came to a Big Ten team winning the national championship.
We're going to get crucified in the Southeast. I mean, the Buckeyes winning, and you have that would be absolutely fantastic. You have Oregon. Oregon's a good team, Diesel. I've been impressed with them and Dylan Gabriel. So it'll be a lot of fun. I just do believe that at the end of the day, Ohio State has something to prove with the way they've played lately. The question is, can they prove it?
I tell you what, in the next segment, let's have Kelley Ford analyze every single one of our picks and tell us who's right and who's wrong. Now, we're going to talk all things college football with our friend Kelley Ford of K Ford Ratings. Very, very smart guy. Get ready to think. Get ready to make your head hurt. He's coming up next on the Fan Upstate. Tolos, don't forget, we'll be back with our Upset Picks Challenge next week with all games, all bowl games, and the on-campus round of the playoffs before Christmas. That's what you'll be picking on Wednesday of next week. It's time to go to the phone lines right now and be joined by Kelley Ford of KFordRatings.com, a phenomenal guest that you guys love, that we bring on every single week for that reason. He makes us smarter every single time. Kelley, if some people got their way, the SEC patch on the jersey would create a hard and fast rule that because you play in the SEC, you're simply better than a team that doesn't. But better is a subjective eye test that's also influenced by your bias, whereas statistical superiority across multiple metrics is an objective way to determine the exact same thing. Can you think back to a team in years past, or whether it's this year as well, that has truly just defied the eye test in either way, that just balks in the face of the bias and proves that they're better or proves that they're worse than what people think they are?
Yeah, so a team that has proven they were better than the metrics thought they were, there's really been two of them in the last couple of years. One was 2023 Washington. So just a year ago, my numbers, as well as many others, had them as an underdog against Oregon both times they played, both during the regular season and the Pac-12 championship game. Of course, Washington wins both of those games and then wins their semifinal to compete for the national championship, where they ultimately fell to Michigan. The other team is back in, was it 2022? I think it was, the 2022 season, and TCU, a team that, from a power rating standpoint, was, number 13 or 14, I think, at the end of the year. But certainly they had their resume to get into the 14 field, and then they upset Michigan in the semifinal before ultimately losing to Georgia in the national championship game. So those are two teams that I think have been better than the metrics have given them credit for. Some teams that have defied it just this year in terms of not living up to the expectation of the model, whether it's mine or others out there. How about Alabama and Ole Miss? Both of those teams are top 5 in my power ratings, yet both of them missed out on a 12-team playoff, not even a 14 playoff, a 12-team playoff. So certainly some surprising results for both Alabama and Ole Miss this year in terms of maybe on a Saturday-to-Saturday basis didn't quite live up to what the predictive metrics out there expected of those teams.
Kelley, are you good at darts?
Am I good at darts? No, I certainly wouldn't say I'm good. I'm not going to miss the board, but I'm not a good darts player.
Well, the reason I ask is I want you to pick up a dart and give it your best shot and try to just land it on the board, like you said, and find your biggest, not one of, but your biggest flaws, problems with what the College Football Playoff Committee did in their final rankings on Tuesday.
Yeah, so, to me, guys, I have a much bigger issue with the process than necessarily the outcomes. And we've talked about that at length. I think if you're going to have any qualms here, for me, it's really there's 3 teams that I think you could make a case for. One of them's right there in your backyard. I think South Carolina and Alabama both had serious cases for an at-large bid, perhaps in place of, based on resumes, SMU and then Ohio State. That's one that I don't think a lot of people were talking about, Ohio State, because they just assume, hey, they're a pretty good team. Yes, they are, but the resume maybe not quite as strong as people were just led to believe. And then the other one, also in your backyard, so I'm probably not going to make anybody too happy with this one. I think Army had a real case to be considered as the 5th highest ranked champion, a conference champion, in place of Clemson. So I think those are the 3, if you want to look. Clemson and Ohio State and SMU, perhaps a little bit fortunate to get in the field. South Carolina, Alabama, and Army, perhaps a little unfortunate to miss out.
Talking to Kelley Ford of KFordRatings.com. Find his website, spend some time there. Trust me, you're going to be smarter when you walk away from it. Kelley, yesterday Cole said on the show that the committee set a precedent of go 10-2 in a power conference and you're in. In your mind, by itself, is that the correct precedent to set? Because I would argue that as soon as you make that the standard, enough teams are going to try to set things up with their schedules to create a 10-2 outcome that you'd have to eventually, and probably very quickly, swing back to a strength of schedule and resume argument. Can you give us some metrics on why just planning for a 10-2 season is a bad way to try to get in the playoff?
Yeah, so right off the top, I mean, you've got BYU and Miami, who both went 10-2 power conference teams and didn't get in, right? So right there's a couple counter examples to the point. However, I hear the point, and I have said from the very beginning that I think it's one loss, like 0 or 1 loss power conference teams will not be left out by the committee. Like the only way that a 0 or 1 loss power conference team is left out is if there are more of them than there are spots in the playoff. Like I don't think you're going to have a 0 or 1 loss power conference team left out in favor of a team with 2+ losses. I just don't. So I do think if you can get to 11-1, you have guaranteed yourself a spot in the playoff. And in most years, yeah, that's probably going to be a resume that's worthy of it. But I did just get done saying that SMU, who finished 11-2, perhaps, could have been on the outside looking in, or maybe should have been on the outside looking in. So it's not a guarantee the resume will be there. But I do think the committee has basically said if you're a power conference team and you end the regular season with 1 or fewer losses, you are going to be in the playoff. I do think that's a very dangerous precedent to set, just because not all records are created equal. Again, 11-2 SMU versus a 9-3 South Carolina or a 9-3 Alabama. Which one of those is more impressive? I mean, it's just, you got to take it on a case-by-case basis. You have to take it on the merits of the resume in front of you. And I do think the committee, whether they intentionally did it or not, have set some precedents out there. And I do think that ADs and coaches would be wise now to schedule in such a way that's going to maximize their chance to meet those benchmarks, because the committee has said, if you hit these, we will reward you.
Kelley, that's a very interesting answer, by the way. But let's talk about one team that's not in the college football playoff that maybe you and Kelley Ford ratings can give a pretty good case for, and that's a team that has 1 loss on the season to Notre Dame. Can you give a reason as to why Army is sitting back as far as they are?
No, I can't give a reason. I think Army's being disrespected here by the committee. Again, they're 11-1. I actually don't even know where the committee ultimately ranked them, because I turned off the selection show after at 22. I think, is that what I saw? Because they're playing Navy this weekend, so I think I did see that. I have Army at number 18, and so that is behind where, of course, Clemson is ranked by the committee. I have Clemson, though, at number 19. So for me, and my most deserving, I do have Army as the 5th highest ranked conference champion by 1 spot. Again, these are very thin margins, but Army, I mean, yeah, you look at their schedule, and let me quickly pull it up here on my end. We talked about the loss, of course, that they have to Notre Dame, and that's what everyone looks at, but in terms of, quality wins, they don't have a whole lot of them. Tulane in the conference championship game at home was their best win of the season based on my power ratings. I mean, you go down their list that they're lacking in terms of other, quote, quality wins. But the reality is 11-1 against this 12-game schedule, because that's what they have even with the conference championship since the Navy game is upcoming. It's very impressive. And if you look at Clemson, yes, I mean, that's the team, because that's the team we're comparing it to, right? Clemson has better wins. SMU is power rated in the top 15. Their losses are only to top 15 power rated teams: Georgia, Louisville, South Carolina, all very good. And then you've got some games like, Virginia Tech, who's in the top 30. But after that, it kind of falls off for Clemson as well. So when you look at 10-3 Clemson versus 11-1 Army, they have very, very similar resumes. I think the committee has undervalued Army and overvalued Clemson, but I'm really not going to, quarrel too much with it, because in the 12-team playoff, I mean, just win more games and you're going to take it out of the committee's hands. If you leave it up to the committee, kind of shame on you a little bit. That's harsh for Army, though, because they beat every single team on their schedule with the exception of one who nobody thought they beat anyway.
Kelley, one of the hardest parts about, trying to set up a schedule that gets you to the college football playoff is not everybody can play the same 12 teams or 11 teams year in and year out. And you have to have some variance in the quality of opponents that you play. I'm going to make you special advisor to the SEC scheduling office. How would you use metrics to help set up SEC conference schedules? Let's just stay within that conference to make it easy. To set up conference schedules so that everyone plays relatively equal schedules year in and year out. Would you want to use, and you can be as flexible as you want. You don't have to do this. One year we'll play this list of teams, and the next year we play the same list of teams, but just on an opposite home and home field.
Well, let me give you the most fair approach that I could come up with. So every single team, you give them a power rating over the last, call it, 3, 4, 5 years, and weight it to more recent years to carry more weight. And you can use ST Plus, you can use K Ford ratings, you can use FPI, you can use whatever power rating you want, or probably the best practice would be to pick, 4 or 5 and aggregate them into kind of one true power rating. And so you have that then for every team. And then when you go to build a schedule, what you're doing is, as you're balancing the home and away games, you're trying to make every team's schedule as close to net zero as possible, right? And so you're setting up the difficulty of opponents in an equal fashion across all 16 teams in the league. And so you can do that using power ratings in recent years, weighting the most recent year the highest. What I would, that's the fair way to do it. Now, if you want to try to maximize spots in the playoff, what you probably want to do, and now your TV partners aren't going to like this, and there's going to be athletic directors in your own conference that aren't going to like this, but what you kind of want to do is stack the deck in favor of the haves, in favor of the really good teams. So, you're talking about Texas, Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee, these teams that, in recent years have really pushed for CFP spots or won national championships. Give them the more favorable schedules, because we've seen the committee's going to punish you for losing games. If that's all they're going to punish you for, put your best teams in a position where they're not going to lose games. Don't make them play each other, because it's ultimately potentially going to hurt them. So that's the unfair way to do it that I certainly hope they wouldn't. But if that's your ultimate goal, is get teams in the playoff, you would stack the schedule in such a way that would favor the teams that are going to potentially be your candidates to be either your AQ or your at-larges into the playoff.
Well, Kelley, if that's the way we're going to do it, why not put them in the ACC, where it's easy to get to the college football playoff every year, where the complaint is you don't play anybody, so you're not as forged in fire and tested as much over the course of the regular season. That might, in my mind, that might actually hurt some of these teams, because they're not forced to play better football.
All I know is the ACC got 2 teams in, and the SEC only got 3. So clearly the committee is telling us that either the gap in quality between these 2 conferences is not that great, which I don't believe to be true, or they're saying, hey, there were a couple teams in the ACC who really minimized that number in the loss column. SEC teams, you guys beat each other up a little bit, picked up a few extra losses there, Alabama, Ole Miss, South Carolina, and we're going to punish you for that. Like, it's incredibly flawed logic, but at the end of the day, if that's how they're going to do this, if that's how they're going to judge resumes, you as a conference and as athletic directors that are in charge of creating these schedules and sign off on these schedules, you have to have that in mind as they're being created.
Kelley, when you talk about schedule difficulty, I love your website, kfordratings.com, and the schedule difficulty tab. However, I'm trying to figure out if the committee use schedule difficulty in their assessment of all of these teams and the top 25. When I look at your schedule difficulty top 30, and correct me if I'm wrong here, of 30 teams in the schedule difficulty tab, I see 1, 2, 3 teams that are in the college football playoff. Is that right?
Yeah, so what I need to do as I'm quickly searching through my own timeline here, Cole, I need to update that. What you're looking at on the website is preseason. And so I did a couple different times throughout the year post updated, let me see if I can find the most recent one, post updated charts for those. Mm-hmm. And as I go back here, I can't find it off the top of my head. But here we go. So as recently as November 14th, I had Oklahoma with the most difficult schedule. Georgia. So Georgia would be one. No. I'm going quickly through these. Georgia right now is the only one in the top 30. Yeah, schedule difficulty. Georgia is the only one in the top 30 schedule difficulty that made the college football playoff based on the numbers that I ran after week 11 of this season. Again, I can go do a final one now. I have not done that yet, but yeah, schedule difficulty is something that I beat the drum of. I know a lot of people out there are on this train. We talk a lot about strength of schedule. That does not equate to schedule difficulty, but strength of schedule gets thrown around left and right. Schedule difficulty does not, and I believe that's a mistake that the committee and, quite frankly, the media masses are making a mistake as we try to evaluate resumes.
Kelley, this is something that you said that you were working on a couple of weeks or months back. One of the first times we had you on this season, you said you were working on a coaching metric and the effect that a head coach has on a given game or over the course of a season. Just wondering, if you've had more time to ponder that and how I guess sophisticated are you hoping to make that one of these days? Are you planning on including coordinators, first-year coaches, experienced coaches at new programs? Where do you envision this thing going?
Yeah, so that's a project that I've been working on for a couple of years now in the summers. And so I have not done any work on it during the season. My in-season content keeps me busy enough. However, now that is winding down, yes, getting back to the coaching grade project, as I'm calling it, is certainly something that I'm looking forward to. And it's in a really good spot. Yeah, we'll have some new data here from the 2024 season that I can incorporate, but I don't expect it to change my findings a whole lot because I do have a data set that was pretty significant already. So we'll get that input into, I believe, the 2025 preseason rating, power rating for each of these teams. You asked about coordinators there. Yes, that is on the docket as well. I want to get the head coach piece in first. So coordinators will be coming. I've already started on that. I'm down the road, but not certainly at a point where it's going to get into the 2025 model. But I do think that head coaching grades will be in there in 2025. And to answer your next question, no, I don't know how I'm going to deal with Bill Belichick, who has come from the NFL with so much success, and how that will translate. I think he'll probably end up doing a good job. How do I quantify that into the model? I got to think about it a little bit more.
Kelley, my last question for you. When it comes to watchability this weekend, the choices are very limited. The entire country will be watching Army-Navy, which is a fantastic game. Do you have anything to leave our Tolos with in terms of Saturday's game, them sitting down to watch the only game this weekend, and any data, any information from Kelley Ford ratings that might make this game a little more appealing?
Yeah, let me look real quickly here as I pull up the projection graphic for these two teams. So I think there's something to keep in mind as you're watching this game. I do have Army with about a 58% win expectancy, so I expect it to be a one-score game. Ooh. The difference in this game for me is the Army offense that I have right now power rated number 31. The Navy defense is number 56. So, that 25 spot difference between the two of those is pretty significant. And I think that's where the advantage will be had. But you said it. This game is special. It stands alone on its own for a reason. And I love that about this game. I know we have a bowl game later that night now, which I don't think is right, but at least it's not at the same window. Keep in mind, though, with these two teams, what great seasons they had. Army was upgraded nearly 2 touchdowns from the beginning of the season to now. That is number 2 nationally behind only Indiana in terms of teams that have been upgraded the most from preseason to current. Navy, no slouch here. They've been upgraded 11 points since the preseason. That is top 5 nationally as well. So both of these teams, Army at 11-1, Navy at 8-3, have just had incredible years, really, really outstanding, and looking forward to seeing which of these two teams can come out on top and really be, right there with Indiana and Arizona State among the teams that overachieved the absolute most this year.
Kelley, one thing that kind of bugs me most when we get towards the end of the season, we'll sometimes talk about a win like it was a top 25 win, when at the time it was not a top 25 win. Like they might have been ranked 5th in others receiving votes, or vice versa. You'll be talking about a win that was top 25 at the time that is no longer a top 25 because of what happened when you beat them or after that. How does your model grapple with that data set? Certainly there's some value to looking at a team over the course of a season, and early in the year playing a number 10 team maybe isn't playing a number 10 team, and you don't have a lot of data on that team. So how do you deal with how a team is playing at the time, and then couple that with how they play over the course of a season to maybe get a better picture of how good or how not good a win really was?
So this is an incredibly important philosophical question that I've dealt with and really sought advice and input from other people that I respect in the college football analytics community as well as beyond. And so first and foremost, we need to clarify when the question is asked, a top 5, a top 10, a top 25 win, time of game ranking versus current. First and foremost, that is a flawed approach because, again, we shouldn't be using opponents' rankings when we attribute, credit to be earned or lost with wins and losses towards building a resume. You don't use your opponent's ranking. You use your opponent's power rating. That is the way we need to go about assigning credit for resume building purposes, whether it's a win or a loss. So with that kind of overarching disclaimer out there first, I will answer the question because I've gone back and forth with this myself. Should you use the opponent's power rating at the time you played them? Should you use the opponent's power rating that they currently have? Or should you use the better of the two, whichever one is higher? That kind of gives a max credit. And that's what I did for 2 years, the 2023 and the 2022 season. Just this year, 2024, I reverted back to what I did in 2021 and before. I use your opponent's power rating currently, not at the time of the game. So Georgia Tech, for example, in week 0, that was an outstanding win, and it certainly was. And Georgia Tech went on to have a pretty good year at 7-5, exceeding expectations. But they're not going to get credit for beating, a top 15 power rated, forget the ranking, top 15 power rated Florida State team at the time. They're going to get credit for beating, the 75th power rated team or whatever Florida State ended up being this year. I believe that's the more fair way to do it, because we thought we knew something about Florida State, ended up not being the case. We shouldn't overly reward Georgia Tech for that win a few months ago based on what we thought we knew about Florida State. No, what we actually know is they're not very good. And so Georgia Tech, you're going to get credit for that win accordingly. So that's how I have gone about it here in 2024, and I will continue to do so probably in 2025. But it's a very, very interesting philosophical question, and I'm torn between current power rating or which one is better, current or time of game. It's very fascinating, and there's pros and cons to both approaches.
Kelley, always appreciate your time, man. And look, we have loved chatting with you each and every week during football season. Sadly, it's coming to a close, but we'll talk to you again next week, buddy.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Have a good one.
Kelley Ford, K Ford Ratings, and we're going to dive into the top stories in sports next. It's the Daily Wires. So many things happening in the sports world. It's why we dedicate an entire segment to it. We call it the Daily Wires. Former Alabama coach Mike Shula is being promoted to offensive coordinator at South Carolina after spending this past season as an analyst for the Gamecocks. Sources told ESPN on Tuesday Shula played a key role in the development of redshirt freshman Lenora Sellers, who blossomed into one of the best quarterbacks in the SEC. Shula will replace Dow Loggins, who left for App State. Diesel, I think it's a A+ hire.
Yeah, I think it's a good fit. Obviously, you got the synergy and the ability to slide right into that role when you know your location, you know your head coach, you know your players, you're good to go. There were also some rumors, Cole, that Dow Loggins was trying to take Shula with him to App State, but obviously he's going to make more money as a coordinator at South Carolina than he would in Boone.
The NFL announced that they will play a regular season game in Berlin for the first time next season. The league announced this morning the game will be played at Olympic Stadium. It'll be the 5th regular season game played in Germany. The NFL has played games in Munich and Frankfurt since the 2022 season. Quarterback Darian Mensah, the top-rated player in ESPN's transfer portal rankings, has committed to Duke Diesel, who just lost 2 quarterbacks yesterday. He told ESPN on Wednesday he's a redshirt freshman who will have 3 years remaining. He entered the portal in recent days after leading Tulane to the AAC title game in his first year as the starter.
Who knew Duke had that kind of money, right? That they could pull
all that doctor money.
I guess that they could pull a guy that, if he's the top-rated player in the portal rankings, I mean, he seems like he could have gone just about anywhere, right?
It does. It seems like it. Also, portal news, Mississippi State quarterback Michael Van Buren Jr. plans to enter the portal as well. He announced Tuesday Van Buren started 8 games during his true freshman season, threw for almost 2,000 yards, 55% completion percentage, 16 touchdowns, 7 turnovers for the Bulldogs, who went 2-10. Not a great quarterback, but everybody's entering the portal, so why not Michael Van Buren?
Well, if everybody jumped off a bridge, Cole, would you do it too?
Michael Van Buren might.
Hey, if there's a couple $100,000 down there, I would.
Yeah, I mean, of course, we all would. Greenville High School here locally is looking for a new head football coach, as Javo Shaw announced that he will be leaving the school after 1 season. That tenure did not last long, and again, it didn't really seem like a good fit from the very beginning. He's taking a head coaching job in Georgia. Speaking of high school football, several games this weekend. Championship weekend, 1A championship, Abbeville versus Cross. The 2A championship, Clinton Barnwell. 3A, BHP versus Oceanside. 4A, Westside South Florence. 5A Division I, Dutch Fork versus Somerville. And Division II will be Northwestern versus Irmo. Locally, basketball, Furman's off to a 9-1 start. They play at the Well on Saturday against South Carolina State, noon tip. They rank 117th in the Ken Palm ratings. However, things not going so well on the basketball court for the Wofford Terriers over in Spartanburg, off to a 4-6 start on the season. Their next game's Monday against Charleston Southern. The USC Upstate Spartans looking to get some momentum. They've won 2 in a row, but off to a 4-8 start under first-year head coach Marty Richter. The Spartans' next game is this Saturday, Diesel, against the South Carolina Gamecocks. That'll be tough.
You're going to get an education. I'm not sure that you'll get a lot of momentum out of this.
That'll be tough. And lastly, Clemson Tigers off to a 9-1 start. We'll get into the top 25 rankings about 6:45 on the show tonight, but a huge matchup Saturday at 11 a.m. versus Memphis in Little John Coliseum. That one should be a lot of fun.
Clemson is up to 19th in the Ken Palm ratings. And I like Ken Palm. There's a lot of different ones that you can look at. I like Ken Palm a lot.
19th is good.
19th is really good.
That's good.
And Memphis would go a long way. Beating them would go a long way to helping them obviously stay there in that quad 1 status.
RPI. Yeah, no, I mean, it'd be big. No doubt.
When we come back, Cole, it is time for you and I to disagree on everything. We fight it out next in the 5 o'clock fight. time, Cole, to bring back an oldie but a goodie, a fan favorite.
I don't even know. What do I do with my, there's an intro for this. I forgot.
There is. It's called the 5 o'clock fight. It's our opportunity every week now to have 3 different topics where we have to disagree, and the Tolos tell us who made the most compelling argument. It's called the 5 o'clock fight.
It's an all-out slugfest, and nobody's leaving unscathed. 3 topics, 1 winner. It's the 5 o'clock fight on Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson on the Fan Upstate.
Yeah, so here's how it works. 3 rounds. We fight it out. You tell us who made the better argument. Text in 71307. Start your text with keyword fan. Give us a round 1, round 2, and round 3 winner. You could also be a part of the conversation on the web stream, on Facebook, on Twitter, and on YouTube. Just search for the Fan Upstate. Let's get it going, Cole, with round number 1.
Round 1, fight.
If Bill Belichick does in fact get hired at North Carolina, and it would appear that that is going to be the case, will he be able to take North Carolina to success within 3 years? Now, first we have to define what success is.
That's right.
In a 3-year time span.
I'd say ACC contention, right? Is that fair?
And by that, you mean top 3 in the conference? Making it to the championship
Here's
game?
the problem with that.
2?
I think making it, because
you got to
being
make
top 3 in the
in 3
ACC,
years.
I don't know that being top 3 in the ACC is really all that impressive in 3 years.
Oh,
I know. I'd say let's say conference title.
Isn't Miami 3rd in the ACC?
Not
this year?
impressive.
Not impressive.
Sorry, bad about everything. I'd say appearance.
So he's got to appear. Okay,
Yep.
He's got to appear. Can he appear within 3 years? You say?
I say absolutely not. I don't think there's any way with Florida State rebounding. They're going to rebound, right? I mean, are they? We don't know. Are they continuing to field a football team? Do we know that? Florida State, you would think, is going to rebound. Clemson has been in the conversation for a long time. SMU, I don't know that they're going anywhere. Miami, I don't think they're going anywhere. I think there's a long road ahead for Belichick at North Carolina. Unfortunately, I don't think Belichick's around long enough, but the question is 3 years. I'm going to say no. I don't think he'll be able to take UNC to success, and that's appearing in an ACC championship within 3 years.
So, Cole, Bill Belichick is currently 2nd in most number of wins in NFL history, right?
I believe so.
He's just shy
he's
of
just
reaching
second or third. Yeah.
Yeah. He's obviously a very smart guy. X's and O's genius. And I think he's going to have enough name recognition among high school recruits that when Super Bowl winning Bill Belichick walks into your living room, you say, okay, coach, what time you want me there? What time's practice start? I think Bill Belichick's going to be able to get some dudes into that program. And, if the boosters are there throwing a lot of money at NIL, and I'm not familiar with North Carolina's NIL arm to know if they've got the kind of money it takes to compete and to really kind of win out in some of these situations. But yeah, this is the transfer portal era, man. You put enough money out there, you could get the top couple players that can make a difference out of the transfer portal and change your program almost overnight. So, yeah, I think Bill Belichick will appear with North Carolina in the conference championship within 3 years.
And by the way, they got real creative with their NIL naming. UNC launched in August an all-sports collective called Carolina NIL. Very creative there, Tar Heels.
Why not call it the Carolina Collective?
Carolina NIL.
Lame.
I love Garnet Trust. I think that's a great NIL name that South Carolina does. So we'll see. I think it's so interesting. Obviously, we'll continue to talk about it. We said it earlier, Diesel, it makes ACC Media Days really exciting now. You and I were talking after this past year's ACC Media Day that, man, they were just missing something. This big hotel, all these nice, fancy, decorations, and And it was a good turnout, not a great turnout, but now they're missing piece, and Bill Belichick will be in Charlotte next year. That'll be a lot of fun.
Here we go with round number 2.
Round 2, fight.
Cole, who will get fired from their respective position first? Both of these guys are on extremely hot seats, and what happens over the next 3 weeks made it. Heck, both of them might get fired. That would be wild, right? James Franklin or Ryan Day? Who is fired first?
This one's so tough. Can they both be fired at the same time on the same day is the question. I've said all along that James Franklin should be fired because of his inability to win big games. Ryan Day's a good coach. Ryan Day can't beat Michigan, right? That's his flaw. And if Ryan Day goes on a run, like I think he will, Diesel, I think James Franklin is fired first because of his inability to take Penn State to the next level and truly get over that hump.
Cole, I got Ohio State exiting in the first round of this thing.
Ooh.
I got them losing at home to Tennessee. I think Ryan Day's ass is grass. He's gone, man. That fan base is like itching for any excuse to let him go. I mean, we hear it from Buckeye Mike, Buckeye Brian. We got so many
Steve.
Tolos who reach out to us and say the same thing, that they're tired of Ryan Day. They're not buying the shtick anymore, which I think is completely insane. Completely insane. But hey, your standard is your standard.
It's true.
I think Ryan Day's gone first out of those 3.
Ooh.
Here we go, Cole, with round number 3.
Final round, fight.
I 100% know what you're talking about here. You said that you've seen around town a lot
more than ever
over this past couple of weeks. BMWs and nice cars with strings of lights taped to the car. And you're right here. It looks awesome at night, but it looks horrible during the day. What's the question here?
The question should it be okay to be that way? I mean,
should it be okay?
Yeah, I think it's absolutely horrible to have the light strung on the cars. I don't think, number one, it should be okay. Diesel, I don't think anyone should ever wake up in the morning and think, oh, I'm going to go put 8,544 pieces of tape on my BMW just so I can get these Christmas lights up. I know it's daylight savings. I know that, it gets dark at 5 o'clock. So as of right now, your car is starting to look pretty good. I saw one drive by here the other day on Woodruff Road, right here where we sit. I've seen a million of them in Boiling Springs where I live over the past couple of weeks. Diesel, no way should it be legal or allowed or cool to put lights and tape all over your freaking car.
Is it okay? I mean, yeah, it's your car, right? Do what you want to do with it. Would I do it to mine? No. It's like not too dissimilar from this. All these people who have Jeep ducks all over their dash, I give those things away as soon as somebody puts one on my car. I don't want them.
You don't like the Jeep ducks?
I think it's stupid. I don't want them. But that said, it's your car. Do what you want to do with it. Like it's like how I feel about steaks. It's your steak. Put A1 sauce on it if you want to. You may not feel like you need to. It may be a beautiful cut of steak that doesn't need it. But hey, if I need tangy A1 sauce to enjoy my steak, great. If I need, 30 boxes of colorful dancing lights to enjoy my German sports car, go ahead and do it.
It looks so bad during the day, man. It's so bad. It's like tape everywhere. Again, and by the way, I ate A1 sauce or used A1 sauce today. Wasn't on a steak, but I love, me, I love my A1 sauce.
Yeah. That's one of those things I don't skimp on. I have to buy name brand A1 sauce.
Yeah, I agree with that.
There's knockoffs, there's competitors. It's like A1 sauce and toilet paper. I don't skimp. I get the good stuff.
I'll tell you this. Today I did this at lunch. I just use way too much of it. Like I love
toilet paper or A1?
A1.
Oh, okay.
Well, maybe both. A1 though, in particular. I absolutely love it. But the lights on the Christmas tree. Texter says, this is Rick. I don't know if this is true or not because it's from Rick. And if this is Rick and Greer, then I'm always, picking on Rick. If it's another Rick, I'm sorry. Rick says it's against the law. And I did not know that. Can we confirm or deny that it is against the law to have the Christmas lights taped here? What would the law be?
Public endangerment, maybe?
Maybe your car's going to catch on fire.
Do we have any police officers listening to the show right now? Can you text in 71307? Start your text with keyword fan and tell us, is it legal or illegal in the state of South Carolina to have Christmas lights adorning the outside of your vehicle?
So I'm going to just give you what Google AI says. No, driving with Christmas lights on your car is illegal in most U.S. states when on public roads. These decorative lights typically violate vehicle lighting laws that restrict colors and types of lights permitted on vehicles.
Okay, so follow-up question, as we know our dozens of law enforcement officers in the audience are texting in, what would the charge be if you were ticketing someone for that? What would the charge be? Help us out. So there you go. That is the 5 o'clock fight. To recap, round one, if Bill Belichick gets hired at North Carolina, will he be successful? Cole says no. I say yes. Round two, who will get fired from their job first, James Franklin or Ryan Day? He's going Penn State's James Franklin. I'm going to Ohio State's Ryan Day. And round number three, is it okay to adorn your nice vehicle with Christmas lights if you want to do it? Cole says absolutely not. It's horrible. It's ugly. Don't do it. I say, you know what? It's your car. Do it if you want to. That's your 5 o'clock fight. Your job now is to start texting in with your votes, 71307. Start your text with keyword fan. Tell us who wins rounds 1, 2, and 3. And as you're doing that, here's how you can suggest a 5 o'clock fight.
What do you want Diesel and Co. Bryson to fight about next?
If you've got an ass, I'll kick it.
Submit your topics to Diesel at thefanupstate.com. Subject line, fight on the Fan Upstate.
I'm now looking. Yeah. I'm now watching Garlington and Woodruff Road. I want to see one now. I don't know why. It must be a Bowling Springs thing, but I have seen a ton. Maybe it's just I don't want to offend anybody. It looks trashy to me. It looks trashy. That's just my opinion. If I offended you, I'm sorry.
I mean, there's going to be that dummy who uses duct tape instead of Scotch tape.
Ooh.
And then takes off a little chip of the paint. And then that's going to rust and it's going to grow.
Or
and you're going to ruin your paint job.
There's going to be a dummy Diesel who isn't smart about the layering of the lights, and after they do it, can't figure out how to open the door. They're gonna. You know what I'm saying?
Wrap their vehicle in lights and then not be able to get in. They're gonna have to go in NASCAR style.
Can't get in the freaking.
How about that?
Also, I want to say to the Tolos out there who are texting in, your participation in the 5 o'clock fight's great, but we're going to ask for your participation in 2 back-to-back segments because I do want to tease in the very next segment a Christmas movie bracket that we are beginning today, and we are going to need heavy Tolo participation coming up in about 15 minutes.
Okay, I'll start with the web stream, Cole. Okay. This is on Facebook, Twitter, and on YouTube. Search for the Fan Upstate. You can jump in there and chop it up with JD and Matt about everything and all the other Tolos who are watching the show right now on the web stream. Let's see here. Let's see. I'm trying to find the beginning of these votes that are coming in. Let's see. Gosh,
yeah, a lot, man.
Yeah, it's hard to
find. It's a good problem to have.
Dan B says, I believe any flashing lights are reserved for emergency vehicles. Mad Craft says Diesel wins round 1. Cole wins rounds 2 and 3 unless it's a truck grill. Okay. Unless it's a truck grill or a bumper guard. There you go. So there's his votes. Tolos, the rest of you, JD, Dan B, get in there and tell us who's winning in the 5 o'clock fight.
All right, on the text line, texter says, guys, not just Belichick, but imagine the ex-NFL players who could coach and recruit for him. UNC positioning themselves for the super conference realignment that is coming, says Spartanburg. Jay, I like that text. I like that. All right, to the votes, Corn Chip. What's up, Corn Chip? Good to hear from you. Corn Chip says Cole gets the win with 1 and 3. So, Diesel, he does agree with you on the Ryan Day being fired before James Franklin. Texter says, cook your eggs with A1. You're welcome. Never done that.
How does A1 that it's heated in a pan taste?
Cook? Did he say cook?
Cook it with it or just put it on it?
That's a good question.
He says
Dexter.
cook it with it.
He says cook your eggs with A1. Do you mean cook the A1 in the eggs or just like pour the A1 on the eggs after? I don't know if I'd hate that because I love A1. Don't love eggs. I'm one of those that has to have like cheese or something on it to. I don't love eggs, so maybe that would help me.
You see what you got to do, Cole? You got to put a little cream in there. And whip your eggs with just a little bit, right? Just doesn't take much.
Yeah.
Salt and pepper, obviously, because the salt helps the membranes of the egg yolk break down, so it makes them a little like runnier. So it makes it easier to beat it and fluff it.
I like salsa with eggs. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
Michael in Simpsonville says A1 bold way better. I have no idea what he's talking about.
So it's a flavor of A1.
You're kidding me.
It's more A1-y than A1.
And I've never known about this.
It's not.
Wait a minute. A1 bold. You're kidding me. This is a real thing. Michael in Simpsonville, I had no idea. I'm looking at it now. Bold and spicy? Is that what? Oh, my gosh. I've never heard of that. Again, I'm in the dark there as much as I love A1.
Oh, we have a follow-up. Texter says, whip the A1 and eggs together.
No way.
I don't know. That's got to be a weird color.
Ooh.
Huh?
Ugh.
Huh?
Okay.
Ugh.
I'll try it, though. How about that?
I mean, I'd definitely try
Let's try it. Mongo. What's up, Mongo? I talked to Mongo a good bit on Sunday, I believe, on Twitter. Mongo says, pretty sure it depends on the color of the lights. Can't have red or blue for sure. Well, that makes sense. But
do you think those people are really going through the entire strand of light bulbs and taking the red and blue ones off?
Are there? Yeah, I guess there are a lot of red.
Yeah, there's red and blue on the strands.
Yeah.
Nobody's doing that, right? Nobody's taking the red and blue lights away.
And you can buy the, what do they call it? The clear lights?
The white ones?
The white ones, but I hadn't seen those on
but
cars.
Nobody would actually get pulled over for that, right? Like I've seen people run red lights in front of a cop, directly in front of a cop, and the officer doesn't pull them over. So I think that's probably pretty far down the total poll of things that cops are worried about right now.
A few more votes, and then we'll get to the phones. Texter says Cole with the clean sweep. Texter says the charge is just being tacky. Cocky for a reason says Diesel sweeps, and Cole, it's not daylight savings times. We are in the Eastern Standard Time. Apologize, Cocky for a reason. Texter says Diesel 1, Cole 2, Cole 3. Let's see. John Dog says don't like your eggs, Cole. You're not from the South. I'll eat them. Like, again, if we're eating eggs, that's okay. I don't crave them. Corn Chip says, I top my eggs with toast and barbecue sauce. Good grief. Texter says, whoever's whipping the eggs and A1 together is a psychopath. Mongo says, everyone wants to be an outlaw. And can't read all the everyone wants to be an outlaw until it's time to do outlaw SHIT. Put the lights on your car, Mongo. Mongo's hilarious, man. He told a story on Sunday on this Twitter Live, Diesel, that had me rolling. And I'm not going to say it on the air, but it was on Twitter, so obviously you can say what you want to there. But
do you think you could stop David Allen Coe from putting lights on the outside of his car if he wanted to? What about Chris Christopherson? He put those lights on there. Can't stop him. Can't stop Outlaw Country.
You cannot stop the outlaw, says Mongo. All right, Tom wants to chime in. It's been a while since we heard from Tom. Now, he told us last week he was
driving to New Mexico.
That's right.
During rivalry weekend. Tom, how did you get your football fix on rivalry weekend?
I missed out on a lot of it, but it's all good. Back in the old Somerville. But y'all are talking about A1. Hey, next time you go to Waffle House, put you some A1 on those hash browns, just a little bit, and it'll change your life. But I want to say this about Bill Belichick. What in the world is the University of North Carolina thinking? Because here's the thing. From a publicity standpoint, it makes sense. But how do you gauge success with Bill Belichick in North Carolina? Because, a common sense person is going to tell you compete for the conference, compete for the playoff. but I don't know if that's possible with Bill Belichick. You know, like if it's 6 to 7 to 8 wins, it's not going to last very long. Yes, he can probably get you to that level, but I don't see it being more than that. Even, you know, there's some people talking they're going to increase their NIL budget. That's fine, but if you don't have the attraction to go there, does it really matter? I agree with Cole. I don't think this is going to work. I think it's a bad idea.
Yeah, but Tom, what you're forgetting is they've got this brand new recruit named Tim Grady, and he looks a little mature, but he's got a rifle for an arm, and I'm telling you, I think those two are going to go all the way to the top.
Hey, well, I heard NC State was going to hire Eli Manning as the defensive coordinator or offensive coordinator, and if that happens, well, good luck. But I didn't get the call early in the week. I do need to say congratulations to Clemson for winning your conference. Good job. Have fun in Austin, Texas. It's probably going to be a short trip, but have fun. That was a great football game Saturday night. I did get to see the tail end of it. It was a great football game. So congratulations to you Clemson Tigers on winning your conference.
Tom, that was very classy. We appreciate that.
Good job, and have fun in Austin.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you, Tom.
Look at Tom.
I should have asked Tom, did he drive back from New Mexico? Because I know they drove to New Mexico. Did they drive back or did they fly back? Because that's 28 plus hours in the car.
It's a long time.
I think he'd still be driving if he drove back.
It could be. It could be. All right, Tolos, we need your participation. One more segment today because this one's important. And then we have Chris Phillips of SEC Unfiltered at 5:45. But we are starting our Christmas movie bracket. I asked you, Tolos, on Facebook this morning to get your submissions in. You did. Good job. And we're going to go through one round at a time, round by round, 24 movies. Who will be crowned the best Christmas movie ever? You help us decide next. All right, we've got to get down to business, Diesel, one of the most important segments, brackets we'll ever do. This got a good bit of participation on our Facebook page earlier today. And Tolos, I teased it earlier in the show, and I need your participation right now. We are about to attempt to find the best Christmas movie ever. Not top 5, not top 10, but the best. Diesel, we have 24 movies that the Tolos submitted this morning on Facebook. Now, some of these are old ones, like the old classics. It's okay. Everything's on the table here.
Sure.
And an hour ago when I teased this, the conversation already started in the stream about Die Hard better not be on there because Die Hard's not a Christmas. It's on there. Somebody suggested it on Facebook. You have a problem? I mean, is Die Hard in your mind? Is that okay?
It's a Christmas movie.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I didn't know.
They're having a Christmas party at Nakatomi Plaza.
I didn't know.
I mean, it's not the most festive movie ever, but I believe at one point Bruce Willis is wearing a Santa hat and they're having a Christmas party. It is a Christmas movie.
Okay. All right. Diesel cleared the air there.
No, the bad guy's wearing the Christmas hat. Now I remember.
The bad guy.
The blonde guy.
That's right.
The blonde guy.
That's right. That's right. All right. So we've got a little Christmas music in the background that is Odyssey Christmas music, just so you know.
Yeah, whitelisted so we don't get in trouble on YouTube.
We don't ever want to do that. But first round, we'll do one round per day, Diesel, because we have 24 total teams. So there were some buys. Tolos, we need your rapid response on the text line 71307. Start your text with the word fan. I'll keep up with this after the segment's over with. I'll go back and tally it up. Or I might can do it in real time. We'll see how good I am. But Diesel, as we go through them, you and I are going to give our opinion on who should advance. However, what do you think? Do you think we should have each round the most votes from the Tolos send the movie to the next round?
Of course.
All right, let's do it.
Yeah.
Let's do it. Christmas movie bracket. Which one's the best? We start in the top left corner of the bracket. The first matchup, Tolos. Ready? 71307, also on the stream. Start your text with the word fan. The first round is Elf versus Christmas with the Cranks. Easy decision for me.
Yeah.
I don't like Elf.
Well, easy decision for me. I never saw Christmas with the Cranks.
No!
I've never seen
Are
it.
you kidding me?
I'm aware of the premise.
Oh.
That like Tim Allen and his wife, they're going like anti-Christmas. And they're going on a cruise instead, and then some sort of hijinks ensue.
I've never seen
Christmas with the Cranks.
No,
I've never sat and watched the movie. I'm sure I've been in a room
where it's on.
Okay, but
you need to watch it. It's good.
I never watched it.
It's really good. It's a classic. The text line already blowing up. So submissions are going to end very shortly, texters. So you get them in now, they'll count. But we got to move on. So
yeah, my vote goes for Elf.
Oh, your vote goes for Elf. So mine goes for Christmas with the Cranks. On the text line, submissions are stopped now. Cut off. No more submissions. So we've already got
instant.
Quick. Just bam, gone. If you text it any later, I might hear it. I might see it, I might not. But no more submissions because the text line's already freaking just nuts. I mean, nuts.
Oh, my God.
I told you.
Oh, my God.
Over. No more text. Call it, Diesel. Call it. Like the election.
It's over because Elf just demolished Christmas with the Cranks.
No, are you kidding me?
Demolished.
I see 1, 2.
There's 2 votes for Christmas with the Cranks.
I see 3 votes and like 20 for Elf. Oh my gosh! So Elf wins over Cranks.
If you want some nightmare fuel, go to Home Depot. They've got a Buddy the Elf statue. I don't know if it dances. I don't know if it sings or speaks, but it is terrifying.
Oh my word! That was unbelievable. I mean, 20 plus just like that. Bam. You're right. Elf did demolish Christmas with the Cranks. Okay, that one's over. Cut off. Done. Donezo. Elf wins. It's sad. I love Christmas with the Cranks, but Elf has defeated Diesel Christmas with the Cranks. Next, Polar Express versus Home Alone 1. Voting opens now. 71307. Start your text with the word fan.
That's another easy one.
You think so?
Home Alone.
It's Home Alone, without a doubt. I hate Polar Express.
Home Alone might be an inside shot to win this whole thing.
You think so?
Oh yeah,
It is.
it's great.
so
I mean,
good.
the premise makes no sense whatsoever, right?
But
I
it's
mean, like,
great.
how many life-threatening injuries can you take and just get up and keep coming?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's
That's what she said.
a suspension of disbelief.
All right.
And I love it. Paint can to
Already-
the face, nail through the foot, iron to the forehead.
It's so good.
That movie had me rolling as a child.
Yeah.
It still does. I still put it on.
It's still one of the best you have to watch every year. I agree with you. Okay, Tolos, because of the text line, over. Done. This one's done. I'm calling this one, okay? Round 1 is absolutely cut off, or round 2, rather, cut off. I'm sorry, but no more. Again, Diesel, looking down, does it look like a clean sweep almost again?
Well, Polar Express did pick up 1 or 2 votes.
Let's make sure, though.
It's a vast majority Home Alone.
So Home Alone, I'm putting this in the doc here. Home Alone over.
Texter says Polar Express is creepy. Is that the one that was like early?
I don't like it either, man.
Early like CGI animated.
It's
It-
terrible.
yeah.
Terrible.
Wasn't Tom Hanks the voice or something?
Round 2's done. No more submissions for that. Home Alone won by far. I mean, just you Tolos are killing it. I'm just going to tell you, for example, within a matter of seconds, 20 to 30 texts coming in, rapid fire. That's fantastic. So far, Diesel, we have Elf beating Christmas with the Cranks, Home Alone beating Polar Express. We've got round 3, Tolos. It's open. We got to go through these a little bit quicker because we do have Chris Phillips in about 7 minutes. Miracle on 31st versus Home Alone 2.
Home Alone 2.
Home Alone 2.
Home Alone 2 was great.
It was. You could argue it was better than Home Alone 1. I think this will be a fairly clean sweep for Home Alone 2
Except for the bird turd lady. I didn't like her.
But we did have to put submissions from the Tolos on Facebook this morning on the thing, and Miracle on 31st was several submissions by several of you Tolos out there. So Home Alone 2, did I say that right?
Yep.
Home Alone 2 versus Miracle on 31st Street. Let me say that right, as I apologize. There's a Miracle on 31st off the bat, 34th. See, I don't even know what that shows you. That just shows you. But this one's going to be a clean, not a clean sweep, but this one's going to be heavy.
Two votes for Miracle. The other one, all the other 25 of them from Home Alone.
All right, so submissions continuing. Let's make sure. Home Alone 2. Yep. Okay, submissions done on that one. No more on that one, Tolos. No more submissions on that round. Home Alone 2 has defeated Miracle. So to the other side of the bracket, we have 3 more, Diesel. So far, we have Elf over Christmas with the Cranks, Home Alone over Polar Express, Home Alone 2 over Miracle on 34th, 1st, whatever it is. A Christmas Story versus Charlie Brown Christmas. Voting opens now, 71307.
You'll shoot your eye out. Like, only one of these movies, Cole, gets a 28-hour marathon on 2 channels, by the way, on Christmas Day.
Fair point.
Did you know that? They have it on 2
I did
different.
not.
It's on TBS. I think it's on TBS and TNT.
No, I did not know
And
that.
they show them, they get to the halfway point of the movie, and then they start it on the other channel. It's kind of like back in the day. You're probably too young to remember this, but back in the day when you would order a movie on pay-per-view, you would have to tune in at the right time to start the movie. But they would have it on 2 or 3 different stations.
Yeah.
So that you wouldn't have to wait all the way until the end of the movie
To get the
start
new
it
one.
again.
That's right.
Yeah,
I
to
do
get it
remember
again.
that.
So
All right, cut off. No more Tolos. No more.
It's
no
a
more.
Christmas
no more.
Story.
Let's make sure.
gotta
2. Let's make sure. First of all, Tolos, no more. Contest over. Diesel, we might have a little bit of a problem.
Close.
It's close.
I'm counting.
No more text. No more text. A Christmas Story because of the sexy leg lamp, says one texter.
It's a major award.
That's 2, 3 Christmas Story, 4.
I got 8 for A Christmas Story.
Okay. I think, we might be. I cut that one early. Or I think it won barely. Tell me if I'm wrong.
I've got
I think
6 for Charlie Brown.
so. Christmas Story won.
8-6.
Okay, so a Christmas Story won over Charlie Brown, which it should have.
The soft glow of electric sex gleaming in the window wins out.
It should have. It is the superior movie, without a doubt. So that one's done. All right. 2 more rounds here to get to. before we run to a break, and we'll continue this each day. Tomorrow we'll have the second round and so on and so forth. Mm-hmm. Jack Frost versus the Grinch.
Is this the Jim Carrey Grinch or the animated Grinch?
That's a good question. It's a really good question. You make the decision on that.
Since Jack Frost is live action, I'm going to say the Grinch should also be live action.
Jim Carrey? I like it.
So the Jim Carrey's the Grinch movie versus Jack Frost.
All right, submissions are open. Jack Frost versus the Grinch. My prediction, Grinch wins, right?
Probably, but
over Jack Frost.
Probably, but I like Jack Frost. Michael Keaton, right? Michael Keaton was great. He's incredible.
All right, I'm going to cut this one.
I've seen it.
I'm going to cut this one early because
the costume design for the Who's was freaky.
It was weird, wasn't it?
It was really weird.
All right, no more. Cut off. Tolos, no more. This round's over. The voting for this round's over. The Grinch, let me make sure here, Diesel. The Grinch, I believe, won. Help me make sure. It looks like it, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so Grinch over Frost. All right, that
by
leaves
far,
us.
Yeah,
by
that
far.
one.
All right, one more.
I think
more
that
round.
movie that movie let Jim Carrey indulge in himself way too much.
So one more game in this round. I'm sorry, I confused Madcraft earlier. So one more game. This is all round one, advancing to the second round where we have buys, and that'll get tomorrow. Santa Claus 1. This one won't be close in my mind. Versus Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Voting opens now. 71307 keyword fan.
That's the 1950s Rudolph.
Yeah,
right.
The old And this one won't be close. Rudolph.
The answer is Rudolph.
No.
Yeah, the answer is Rudolph. I love the Santa Claus. I did like the Santa Claus.
Are you kidding me?
I did like it.
You can't say that. No.
Rudolph is so good, man. It's timeless.
It's good. It's just not as good as
we got the it was the animation was incredible, right? It was like stop motion animation. It was so good. Come on, how could you not say that?
All right.
It had an abominable snowman. It had a narwhal.
It did.
Elves Santa.
It did. All right, let's do this. Let me look down, see how many texts we've got coming in. A few more seconds, texters. A few more seconds. We got to run to a break. We're going to have Chris Phillips of SEC Filtered, but we're going to call this one here shortly. We've got Rudolph, Santa Claus, Santa Claus, Santa Claus, Santa Claus. Ooh, it's looking like Santa Claus. There's two more. All right, this one is closed. And Die Hard, yes, texter, they got to buy. Die Hard got to buy. That'll be tomorrow. So this one's closed.
Just put it in the finals because it's probably going to win.
You think so?
Yeah, probably.
No, not over. Okay, let me not go there. Santa Claus 1 wins over. What was it? Rudolph
the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
Yep. So
I think y'all are wrong. I think recency bias is taking over in this one.
That was fun. We're going to do round 2, which we have some buys to mix in. We'll do that tomorrow, Tolos. We need you tomorrow.
Chris Phillips next. When it's time to talk SEC, when it's time to get to the pulse of the fan base, we go to one person, Chris Phillips of SEC Unfiltered, joining us today from the slopes in Banner Elk. He is at Beach Mountain. Chris, how many Tennessee Volunteer linemen have you had to dodge making your way to the chairlift? Because you made a case earlier today. I saw your video. It's a fantastic location to film a video, that Tennessee was not going to be daunted by the bad conditions in Columbus. So I assume that the volunteer team came across the mountains so they could get that real cold weather and get ready for Columbus.
What's up, man? Yeah, something like that. I want to say, man, it's crazy. You know, I was hanging out here on the slopes, and I told some folks I had to do a radio hit with Diesel, and they started to applaud the name Diesel. Man, this is the land that Diesel built. So proud App State Mountaineer. So it's been a good time. We've had a great week, and I don't know, something just hit me today. I was sitting there on the chairlift over there at Sugar and was like, it's pretty cold here too. So I don't want those Big Ten folks to get too comfortable and think that Tennessee's going to be phased in any way. It's about a crisp 18 degrees right now, Diesel, which I'm about to go out into. So real psycho energy from yours truly.
Hey, Chris, I know this is not SEC related, but probably some of the biggest news we'll hear all off season. Bill Belichick will be the next head football coach at North Carolina, 6-time Super Bowl winner. Your thoughts on that news?
I mean, it's shocking. I mean, I don't know how else to put it. It's how bored is Bill Belichick? I mean, he just couldn't get away from it. And if I was a North Carolina fan, I'd be less than thrilled. I mean, listen, guys, he's going to bring organization. He's going to bring structure. Obviously, I think I read somewhere that he gave the folks at UNC a 400-page pamphlet, essentially, that they needed to go through, and I guess they went through that and liked what they saw. But I don't know, man. I don't care how great of a legendary coach you are or whatever. I don't know how he's going to relate to today's athletes and work the portal. But then again, I mean, he's worked at the highest level, and I'm sure he's going to put the right people in place. It's a name. It's a name. It's a PR win. I just don't know if it's going to really equate to wins on the field the way they think.
Chris, speaking of coaching changes in the state of North Carolina, you're right there, just a couple of miles away from App State's campus. And a lot of the fan base is excited about the Dowell Loggins hire, because I don't think a lot of the fan base really knows a whole lot about Dowell. You look at Gamecock Twitter, it's pretty 50-50 split as to whether or not they're happy that Dowell is gone. So help me out as an App State fan. I can't figure it out from the Gamecock fans. Is Dowell Loggins any good? Is he going to be a good coach at App?
Yeah, admittedly, Diesel, for anybody that follows along on social media, my first reaction was not positive. I mean, I've never really been a huge Dowell Loggins fan. I mean, I will say, obviously, this past year, you look at what they did offensively, and, I think how much of that had to do with the play calling, how much of it had to do with the game-breaking ability of Lenora Sellers. He's a guy that obviously makes any OC look really smart. I mean, I'm the same way, Diesel. Listen, obviously, I'm in plenty of circles with a lot of my buddies are Gamecock friends. It was pretty split amongst them as well. I mean, a lot of them were ecstatic that he's gone, and some of them felt like that the offense was starting to hit their stride because of some of the things that he was doing. So, Diesel, it's tough because, when you go from an OC to the head coach, I think it's a different dynamic. I mean, it could be like the opposite of a Will Muschamp, who was a great defensive coordinator and then just couldn't figure it out as an HC. So, maybe Dowell will be the opposite, not a great offensive play caller, but a good head coach at that group of 5 level. But, yeah, it's very wait and see, Diesel. Unfortunately, I don't have anything really firm to stand on that I'm going to sell to you that'll make you believe he's going to lead the Mountaineers back to a title of any kind. But, we'll wait and see.
Chris Phillips, SEC Unfiltered. Chris, there are 3 teams in the college football playoff from the SEC. Of the 3, your team that has the best chance to make a run or just outright win the whole freaking thing. Of the 3 teams, Chris Phillips says,
I would go Georgia, even without Carson Beck. And I think a lot of it has to do with who they're going to play. I think they're on the more favorable side of the bracket. I will say, too, guys, that, it was in limited action, but I like what I saw from Gunnar Stockton. I think with his mobility as well, I think it brings a new dynamic to the offense. So, I think as long as, they're going to try to not have to ask him to do a ton. But when you look at Texas and you look at, gosh, I'm blanking on the third team. When you look at who is the third SEC team? Texas, Georgia, Tennessee. How can I forget? Yeah, when you look at the Vols and what they've got to go through, the Vols have got a gauntlet. And, of course, Texas open up with Clemson, but on the same side as Oregon. Tennessee, Ohio State. It's going to be a tough task. I still like Georgia's path the most, and I think we're probably on a crash course to get Georgia, Oregon in the national title, and we'll see what happens from there.
Chris, we had this topic in the very first segment of the show. I don't know what you're hearing out there amongst all the snow bunnies, but it was reported earlier today by Gator Season on Twitter that linebacker Jack Pyburn wanted certain guarantees from the University of Florida, $45K a month, guaranteed starting job, guaranteed to play on third downs. What's your initial reaction, and what are you hearing to either prove or disprove this loud rumor?
Diesel, my first reaction is who? Who is that? I mean, I don't even know who that is.
Junior linebacker.
I understand. I mean, and I watched a good bit of Florida football this year. I saw him in person a couple times, but to be asking all those demands, I mean, you think he'd be first team All SEC, All American, whatever. I mean, I would laugh the kid out of the room, honestly, if I'm being totally honest. And you can do that now, right? Because this is a business, and you come to the table with a trash negotiation, if you will, or what you feel like is one. You can kind of scoff at it and have your own reaction to it. So, yeah, if I'm Florida, I'm respectfully, politely declining. Obviously, they did. He entered the portal. From the Florida folks I talked to, and again, it's been reported by credible sources like the On3 guys over there who do a really good job. Yeah, I think that was a real thing. So, listen, never settle for less than you feel like you deserve. I respect the kid for doing it, but I don't blame Florida at all for kind of laughing that one off and telling him to go look elsewhere.
Chris, Tennessee can win the national championship because
they get the best version of Nico Iamaleava. They got everything else. I mean, they've got the defense. They've got the running game. If they can get a Nico playing at a high level, yeah, I think Tennessee absolutely can win the national championship. Now, they're one that, again, if I were setting the odds, they'd probably be near the bottom end of that in regards to, what their odds would be, just because we haven't really seen it from Nico, at least consistently. But I do think, again, they've got everything else. They've got a championship-level front seven. They've got a championship-level running game with Dylan Sampson. I think Nico Iamaleava, if you can get a championship-level performance from him on a week-in, week-out basis, or for the, 4 games or so they need, 4 or 5 games they need to do so, I think they could win it. It's just Nico's got to get hot. I think that's really what controls their ceiling is playing the quarterback.
Chris, they're projecting over 1,000 players enter the transfer portal in this current window that we're in. That seems like just a gigantic number, bigger than we've ever seen, the number of players who are in the portal. Is there one or two guys that you've heard their names so far that are in the portal who you think, man, that guy's just making a big time mistake? Like he's in a good situation. He's on a good team with a good staff around him, and he is not going to find something this good in the portal again.
In regards to a guy making a mistake, not necessarily. I mean, there's been some that have surprised me for sure. I think Jackson Arnold leaving Oklahoma, not that one really surprised me, but I think the chain of events that it's led to Michael Van Buren at Mississippi State hitting the transfer portal. We know that Blake Shapen is going to be back for State as well. So I think it's kind of stars aligning that Arnold's going to link back up with Jeff Levy there at Mississippi State. I look at Malik Murphy leaving Duke. I think that's, interesting. And I know a lot of Duke folks are upset, but I think really what he did was just left Texas to get some playing time to then fall into a better role or a better, quote unquote, better, right? We'll see. Again, I don't really look at any guys that I've seen at this point that I feel like are making a mistake. I think the only way, guys, you really know if it's a mistake, you don't really know until you see where they land and then what the situation is there, right? I mean, it's, every guy out there we can question or we can second guess the decisions they're making. But I mean, if they're making them for the right decisions and they've got something else lined up, it's just the name of the game and you can't blame them. But, I think a lot of these guys, we won't really know was it the right decision, wrong decision until we get further down the road, see where they land. But yeah, I mean, the portal's not slowing down anytime soon, guys. It's only picking up steam. And I think it speaks a lot, to your program, like a South Carolina, where I haven't seen their name in the portal news a ton. You got a bunch of guys that are bought in. Dylan Stewart's obviously staying. You don't expect Lenora Sellers, obviously, to go anywhere. When your core guys are intact like that, I do think it really speaks to your culture. And certainly Shane Beamer has built a strong one there at South Carolina. But, yeah, again, we'll have to wait and see in the process to see who are the biggest winners and the biggest losers of portal season from the player standpoint.
Chris, great stuff as always. We appreciate you hopping on with us while you're doing a little snow skiing in where? Bannerell?
Yeah, we're at Beach Mountain, Sugar Mountain up by Bannerell, about 45 minutes from again, the land of Diesel, Boone, North Carolina. I might actually wander my way over there tomorrow, so I'll let you know.
Hey, Chris, if there's a large man, I assume you're in the Sugar Bar right now. If there's a large gentleman with dark hair working the front door, tell him I said hello. He knows me very well.
Will do.
Thanks,
I
Chris.
told you the land of Diesel right here, man. I'm telling you, super sharp here.
Thanks, pal. That is Chris Phillips, SEC Unfiltered. He's got a little break before the slopes open back up, and he can get back out there and shred it up for the night session.
All right, we've seen some interesting news with the latest mock of who will go number one in the NFL draft. We'll fill you in on that, get your thoughts on if that's the right decision, and the latest mock draft. All draft picks, not just number one, where all eyes will be focused on. We'll get into that. Your thoughts, 71307 is the text line. We will hear from you, Tolos. Keep the conversation going in hour number 4 next. during a commercial break that Shedeur Sanders was the odds-on favorite to be the number 1 overall pick in the NFL draft. We were talking about that and wanted to bring it to the airwaves, to you, Tolos. Want to react to Shedeur Sanders possibly going number 1. Will Dion, his dad, let him go to the Raiders probably? And what the latest mock draft says about the rest of the guys as well who are slated to be going in the first round. But Diesel, let's start with prime time. His son obviously will be the talk of the offseason, right? After the season's over, leading up to April. As of right now, Sports Illustrated has the 2-11 Las Vegas Raiders picking number 1. Their biggest needs are quarterback, offensive tackle, and wide receiver. Do you think it's wise to take Shedeur Sanders if you are the Raiders and have the first pick?
Well, there's a lot of different ways to answer that question. Is it likely that that's what they're going to do? Yeah, because that's what teams do in the NFL draft, right? If you suck, you draft a quarterback first and then you try to build around him. Would it be wiser to draft tackle and wide receiver first? Yeah, so that when it's time to draft a quarterback, you can put that quarterback in the best possible position to be successful. Then again, are you willing to miss out on the tremendous PR buzz that you get from having Shedeur Sanders on your team? Will free agents flock to play with Shedeur Sanders? I'm not entirely sure they will. I mean, look, did free agents flock to Chicago to play with Caleb Williams? No.
Not yet.
Did free agents flock to Carolina to play with Bryce Young? No. Did they flock to Houston to play with C.J. Stroud? No. So, I mean, you might get one who's interested. Maybe if it's somebody who played, I don't know. I think that's what they ultimately do is go Shedeur because they'll feel like they can't pass that up. Plus, you get one of the most talked about players in a long time in the city that's all they do is promote and promote and promote and make money. And he still gets to be close to dad.
He does. Among quarterbacks this season with at least 100 attempts, Diesel, Shedeur Sanders' 74.2 completion rate was the best in the nation this past season. He finished second in the FBS with 35 passing touchdowns, third with 3,926 yards, almost a 4,000-yard regular season for Sanders. And you're right, to your point, it's fitting from the standpoint of the Rolex-driven flash, the gamble-centric skills that he possesses. It's unique that might end up in Las Vegas where, Shedeur, prime, Las Vegas, you could kind of see it happening. The Raiders, Diesel, do not have a long-term quarterback. They don't have a solution on their roster. So when I asked you the question, I hear you, and I agree with you that sometimes you have to look at other options to build your team. However, in this situation, I think we have seen time after time and year after year, they're going to take them. To your first point, the quarterback room, very, very thin right now. They have Aiden O'Connell, Desmond Ridder, and Carter Bradley. That's their three options when you talk about the Las Vegas Raiders. So, there's no franchise quarterback that pops off the page there. So I would say that I do believe Shedeur Sanders will be taken by the Raiders if they indeed do have the number 1 overall pick. Will it work out? We shall see. Is he good enough of a player and can he gamble enough, Diesel, when it matters to make plays and be a difference maker immediately? That's the question that will have to be answered. So, Shedeur Sanders is slated to go number 1 overall. The New York Giants, as of right now, Diesel, have a 2-11 record. They need a quarterback. They need an offensive tackle. They need a cornerback. Need a head coach. Need a lot. But Sports Illustrated latest mock draft has Miami's Cam Ward going to New York, a team that was last in NFL or is last as of right now in the NFL in scoring with just 14.9 points per game. Cam Ward, the opposite of that, scored 44.2 points per game. You would think that would be an immediate boost.
Yeah, I like this pick. I mean, who do they got? Tommy DeVito and Drew Lock at quarterback.
Yeah.
Neither one of those guys is a long-term solution. You got players there in New York. I mean, Malik Neighbors at wide receiver, Brian Burns playing linebacker, Devin Singletary, Kayvon Thibodeau. You got dudes there. It feels like they're a piece or two away, and maybe they get both of those in this draft. I mean, if they're drafting second in the second round, also,
100%,
then you have a chance, man, to get what you need. You go get your quarterback, bam, that's set. He is a difference maker. He is a game breaker type of quarterback, and then you go figure out your other needs, which are tackle, and everybody needs offensive tackles, right?
They do.
The defense stinks. You can get cornerbacks in any round, dime a dozen.
To your point, I do think, and Jalen Hyatt from South Carolina, right here from Dutch Fork High School in Columbia, they've got talent. They've got guys who have been making plays this season. But Diesel, I think they completely set the franchise back when they signed Daniel Jones to the contract that they did. It just hurt them in terms of momentum.
And they got to save some money, too. They get a quarterback on the cheap.
They can now with Shedeur, or with Cam Ward for now, right, until he gets good. And they'll have to pay him $80 million or whatever it is a year. But I do think that Cam Ward could be stability. And I think when you look at New York, that's what they need. They need stability. They haven't had that. Daniel Jones has been stably bad, right, in the wrong ways. So they desperately need someone with a little bit of electricity to him, Diesel. And I think that would be a good pick. Also, they have Sports Illustrated has New England 3-10, who needs offensive tackles, wide receivers, and edge rushers. They have another Colorado Buffalo going. That would be two Buffaloes,
1-3.
Top 3, 1-3. Yep. Want to guess? Travis Hunter.
Yeah. I mean, he's
no surprise.
Travis Hunter is probably the best player available. And if Travis was not that he would ever let him do this, right? But if he was a quarterback and defensive back, he'd be the number 1 overall pick without a doubt. I mean, he's elite. He's great. And if you want him at wide receiver, cool, put him at wide receiver. If it turns out for whatever reason he's not good there, throw him out at cornerback. You get a 2-for player. You get a really good player. You got options there with him. Patriots need help in a lot of different places, so I like Travis.
Texter says if the Raiders draft Sanders, they'll also find an offensive-minded coach. You're right. It's a good point. I don't love the Raiders in terms of the coaching staff. I do think it would be a good idea if you're going to go and with the number 1 pick, take Shedeur Sanders. I think you might as well go get an offensive-minded coach who can help him grow into the player he needs. So that's an interesting point as well. So, all right, let's get down to number 4, Diesel, where this one hits close to home because it is home. Charlotte, the Carolina Panthers, who are 3-10. Sports Illustrated says their biggest needs are wide receiver, edge, and cornerback. Sports Illustrated has Mason Graham, a defensive lineman, Diesel, out of Michigan, going to the Carolina Panthers, a guy that can help them out immediately in stopping the run. What do you I need to see more.
I think it's just that it's a name you don't know.
And it's not a sexy pick.
It's not the sexy pick,
right.
But these are the picks that you build a championship roster out of. Second best grade coming out of this draft against stopping the run. So he can certainly help them out in a tremendous way there. He gets sacks. He's got he's got plenty on the season, and 3.5 sacks on the season, 7 tackles for loss, 34 pressures. He gets penetration, right? And he brings quarterbacks down. I think it's a good move. Like you said, it's not a sexy pick, but it's what Carolina needs. You can't just load up with skill players all the time.
No, you can't. You've got to go with the beef, right? The interior guys. I remember a few years ago, Mozzie Smith out of Michigan, very similar. Carolina with this pick, Diesel would be addressing their ability to stop the run. And let's be honest, they need that. They've got to have some guys up front who can beef that lineup a little bit. Mason Graham out of Michigan has the second best run defense grade, which is a 92.4 among defenders in FBS with at least 100 snaps, according to PFF. So, Again, you're right. It's not a sexy pick. And a lot of times I remember when my Cowboys took Zach Martin, offensive lineman out of Notre Dame, back in 2014, we were like, what the heck? Well, he's a Hall of Famer now. So you got to take those linemen, right?
You can't get them all in free agency.
Yeah.
Because teams are not giving up players like that in free agency.
Here's a fun question, though. If the Carolina Panthers indeed took a Mason Graham Diesel in the fourth pick, or with the fourth pick, you'd be passing up guys like a Will Campbell, offensive lineman out of LSU. You'd be passing up the receiver from Arizona. You'd be passing up Jalen Milroe, quarterback, Alabama. Be passing up Kelvin Banks Jr., tackle from Texas. Shamar Stewart, A&M defensive lineman. Maybe Mykel Williams, the really good edge rusher from Georgia. Ashton Jeanty, running back at Boise State. I guess the question is, and again, you and I have had this conversation many times, if you're the Carolina Panthers here, do you go best player available or do you address a need? And that's the hard part about drafting high.
Yeah. Look, the good thing is all these things are needs, right? You could certainly go with a running back. You could go with a great edge rusher. You could go with a linebacker or something, because a linebacker can help stop the run as well. Certainly, that's the run getting into the second level there. You don't need quarterback, we think. So I think going with the addressing of the need, with defensive lineman Mason Graham out of Michigan, I think that is best player available.
And again, I guess it's interesting to me, Diesel, when you look at Ashton Jeanty, who Sports Illustrated has going 12th. If Carolina had Jeanty and this defensive lineman out of Michigan side by side, let's say Jeanty had a 1 point higher grade, right? I'm not saying that he does, but what if he did? Do you risk giving up that need at defensive lineman for a running back who's proven to be very, very good? I guess regardless, there's risk involved, but I do agree with you. I think you have to address your biggest need first.
Yeah, well, that's kind of, flushing your running back, and his name escapes me again off the top of my head, the one that just got hurt, the guy out of Texas.
Oh, Brooks?
Jonathan Brooks. You're flushing him out the system. Look,
and that's a problem. 2 injuries now, right?
You need a running back. Chuba's going to be on an island by himself unless you want to try to go free agency, get somebody on the cheap just to fill that role until he's back. But then again, once you've injured that knee a couple different times, it's weak.
It's Brooks' second injury, I believe.
Yeah, you can't make it perfect again. It's flawed, and that injury is going to keep being exposed.
Diesel, I'm going to go down to 8, where Sports Illustrated has the 3-10 Cleveland Browns taking Jalen Milroe out of Alabama. We've seen a little bit of a roller coaster season for the Alabama quarterback. They've looked good at times. At times, he has not looked good, right? Against Oklahoma is the game that I point to. So here's the problem. You've talked about this many times on the show, the system that the NFL has in the draft with quarterbacks going to the worst teams. This system could cost Jalen Milroe a career by going to Cleveland. And then
I think it costs everyone a career when they go
that's
to Cleveland.
True. It could, yeah.
That's
it could.
the problem,
but
with the whole
especially
franchise.
quarterback. But this one, they got Deshaun. Don't know what what do you do there? You lose a ton of money? You've got to do something. You got to cut the fat.
Yeah, that's a tough one, because Jalen, if this was last year, Jalen Milroe would probably be a top 3 pick.
You would think.
And man, talk about coming back for another year and really hurting your draft stock.
Let me ask you this question, and I know we got to run to a break in a few minutes. Sports Illustrated has my Cowboys picking 12th. Do you believe Ashton Jeanty, running back Boise State, falls to 12th?
No.
You don't think so?
I don't. I don't. And I think maybe Cleveland could go Jeanty. I wouldn't be shocked with that pick. I wouldn't be shocked if the Chicago Bears went Jeanty also to help keep providing young, inexpensive weapons there in Chicago. I know they got their needs too, and maybe running back is not on the top of their priority list, but I don't think Ashton Jeanty falls that far.
If he does, Sports Illustrated has him going to my Cowboys. They say it'll take a seismic shift to move off of this. Cowboys have the worst rushing attack. Ezekiel Elliott, Diesel, who's
90?
Yeah, 90, 91. They've ranked among the bottom of the barrel in rushing yards per game this season. G&T's one of the best. Nation's leading rusher by 837 yards, 344 carries, 2,497 yards. Average is 7.3.
And he hasn't been hurt all year. The dude is durable.
Yeah.
Now, I think Ashton Genty may get taken before that if he has a big explosive game in the playoffs. Right? I mean, you can certainly point at that Oregon game and say, man, he showed out in that game. But if he shows out, goes on a run and has like a game or two in the playoff where he's really good, it starts to assuage some of those fears of, this is a G5 guy. Yeah, he's a great running back, but he did it against G5 defensive lines.
And again, sadly, that's a conversation that'll take place. I don't think it should, but I think sadly it'll be a conversation that does.
Just remember, Patrick Mahomes went to a small college too. He went to Texas Tech.
That's right. And I do think that regardless of who they play, you can evaluate a running back, whether it be FCS, FBS. You can evaluate a running back for what he's worth. And he's proven to be
hopefully
the best.
They're evaluating skill set, not results, or qualifying those results based on where he played.
It would be interesting. I hate to do this, but we're so intrigued. Another year, Diesel in April, about what the Panthers are going to do. You and I last April talked about it at Dave & Buster's, and we knew they had Bryce. We knew they needed help, and this season didn't translate into much at all. We've seen some development and improvement down the stretch, but again, it feels like a broken record. Matt Kraft saying this, but Diesel, this is a huge, huge draft, a very important draft for Carolina coming up.
Yeah, you want to get to the point where you're the Kansas City Chiefs, where you get to you get to take a risk on some guys that you think have a lot of upside. I mean, the Chiefs are never drafting in the top 10, right? They're drafting 32, 31 every year, and they keep finding these diamonds in the rough every single year because there's not as much pressure on them, and they get to take a risk. And if it doesn't work out, who cares?
How about this?
Who cares with the Chiefs? We got everything we need already.
How about this breaking news? 9 minutes ago, Diesel, the NFL is considering replay assist for face mask penalties, other plays after a string of missed calls from the last few games. Talking about Bryce Young, the face mask. That was a really bad one on Sunday. Again, there's been a lot of these lately, but you need replay assist. I mean, are you kidding me?
Yeah. Have an army of guys watching monitors back in the booth somewhere and say, you missed a face mask.
That's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Duh.
Especially, God. And again, I know this is a college game. When you got a center judge in the Clemson game who can stare right at it and not call it, it's just absurd.
Horrible.
Speaking of qualifications, Cole, that's exactly what this next guest does for a living. He qualifies everything with numbers, not with feelings. We go to Kelley Ford of KFordRatings.com next. statistical superiority across multiple metrics is an objective way to determine the exact same thing. Can you think back to a team in years past, or whether it's this year as well, that has truly just defied the eye test in either way, that just balks in the face of the bias? It proves that they're better or proves that they're worse than what people think they are?
Yeah, so a team that has proven they were better than the metrics thought they were, there's really been two of them in the last couple of years. One was 2023 Washington. So just a year ago, my numbers, as well as many others, had them as an underdog against Oregon both times they played, both during the regular season and the Pac-12 championship game. Of course, Washington wins both of those games and then wins their semifinal to compete for the national championship, where they ultimately fell to Michigan. The other team is back in, was it 2022? I think it was, the 2022 season, and TCU, a team that, from a power rating standpoint, was, number 13 or 14, I think, at the end of the year. But certainly they had their resume to get into the 14 field, and then they upset Michigan in the semifinal before ultimately losing to Georgia in the national championship game. So those are two teams that I think have been better than the metrics have given them credit for. Some teams that have defied it just this year in terms of not living up to the expectation of the model, whether it's mine or others out there. How about Alabama and Ole Miss? Both of those teams are top 5 in my power ratings, yet both of them missed out on a 12-team playoff, not even a 4-team playoff, a 12-team playoff. So certainly some surprising results for both Alabama and Ole Miss this year in terms of maybe on a Saturday-to-Saturday basis didn't quite live up to what the predictive metrics out there expected of those teams.
Kelley, are you good at darts?
Am I good at darts? No, I certainly wouldn't say I'm good. I'm not going to miss the board, but I'm not a good darts player.
Well, the reason I ask is I want you to pick up a dart and give it your best shot and try to just land it on the board, like you said, and find your biggest, not one of, but your biggest flaws, problems with what the College Football Playoff Committee did in their final rankings on Tuesday.
Yeah, so, to me, guys, I have a much bigger issue with the process than necessarily the outcomes. And we've talked about that at length. I think if you're going to have any qualms here, for me, it's really there's 3 teams that I think you could make a case for. One of them's right there in your backyard. I think South Carolina and Alabama both had serious cases for an at-large bid, perhaps in place of, based on resumes, SMU and then Ohio State. That's one that I don't think a lot of people were talking about, Ohio State, because they just assume, hey, they're a pretty good team. Yes, they are, but the resume maybe not quite as strong as people were just led to believe. And then the other one, also in your backyard, so I'm probably not going to make anybody too happy with this one. I think Army had a real case to be considered as the 5th highest ranked champion, a conference champion, in place of Clemson. So I think those are the 3, if you want to look. Clemson and Ohio State and SMU, perhaps a little bit fortunate to get in the field. South Carolina, Alabama, and Army, perhaps a little unfortunate to miss out.
Talking to Kelley Ford of kfordratings.com. Find his website, spend some time there. Trust me, you're going to be smarter when you walk away from it. Kelley, yesterday Cole said on the show that the committee set a precedent of go 10-2 in a power conference and you're in. In your mind, by itself, is that the correct precedent to set? Because I would argue that as soon as you make that the standard, enough teams are going to try to set things up with their schedules to create a 10-2 outcome that you'd have to eventually, and probably very quickly, swing back to a strength of schedule and resume argument. Can you give us some metrics on why just planning for a 10-2 season is a bad way to try to get in the playoff?
Yeah, so right off the top, you've got BYU and Miami, who both went 10-2 power conference teams and didn't get in, right? So right there's a couple counter examples to the point. However, I hear the point, and I have said from the very beginning that I think it's one loss. 0 or 1 loss power conference teams will not be left out by the committee. The only way that a 0 or 1 loss power conference team is left out is if there are more of them than there are spots in the playoff. I don't think you're going to have a 0 or 1 loss power conference team left out in favor of a team with 2+ losses. I just don't. So I do think if you can get to 11-1, you have guaranteed yourself a spot in the playoff. And in most years, yeah, that's probably going to be a resume that's worthy of it. But I did just get done saying that SMU, who finished 11-2, perhaps could have been on the outside looking in, or maybe should have been on the outside looking in. So it's not a guarantee the resume will be there. But I do think the committee has basically said if you're a power conference team and you end the regular season with one or fewer losses, you are going to be in the playoff. I do think that's a very dangerous precedent to set, just because not all records are created equal. Again, 11-2 SMU versus a 9-3 South Carolina or a 9-3 Alabama. Which one of those is more impressive? I mean, it's just, you got to take it on a case-by-case basis. You have to take it on the merits of the resume in front of you. And I do think the committee, whether they intentionally did it or not, have set some precedents out there. And I do think that ADs and coaches would be wise now to schedule in such a way that's going to maximize their chance to meet those benchmarks, because the committee has said, if you hit these, we will reward you.
Kelley, that's a very interesting answer, by the way. But let's talk about one team that's not in the college football playoff that maybe you and Kelley Ford ratings can give a pretty good case for, and that's a team that has one loss on the season to Notre Dame. Can you give a reason as to why Army is sitting back as far as they are?
No, I can't give a reason. I think Army's being disrespected here by the committee. Again, they're 11-1. I actually don't even know where the committee ultimately ranked them, because I turned off the selection show after at 22. I think, is that what I saw? Because they're playing Navy this weekend, so I think I did see that. I have Army at number 18, and so that is behind where, of course, Clemson is ranked by the committee. I have Clemson, though, at number 19. So for me, and my most deserving, I do have Army as the 5th highest ranked conference champion by one spot. Again, these are very thin margins, but Army, I mean, yeah, you look at their schedule, and let me quickly pull it up here on my end. We talked about the loss, of course, that they have to Notre Dame, and that's what everyone looks at, but in terms of, quality wins, they don't have a whole lot of them. Tulane in the conference championship game at home was their best win of the season based on my power ratings. I mean, you go down their list that they're lacking in terms of other, quote, quality wins. But the reality is 11-1 against this 12-game schedule, because that's what they have even with the conference championship since the Navy game is upcoming. It's very impressive. And if you look at Clemson, yes, I mean, that's the team, because that's the team we're comparing it to, right? Clemson has better wins. SMU is power rated in the top 15. Their losses are only to top 15 power rated teams: Georgia, Louisville, South Carolina, all very good. And then you've got some games like, Virginia Tech, who's in the top 30. But after that, it kind of falls off for Clemson as well. So when you look at 10-3 Clemson versus 11-1 Army, they have very, very similar resumes. I think the committee has undervalued Army and overvalued Clemson, but I'm really not going to, quarrel too much with it, because in the 12-team playoff, I mean, just win more games and you're going to take it out of the committee's hands. If you leave it up to the committee, kind of shame on you a little bit. That's harsh for Army, though, because they beat every single team on their schedule with the exception of one who nobody thought they beat anyway.
Kelley, one of the hardest parts about, trying to set up a schedule that gets you to the college football playoff is not everybody can play the same 12 teams or 11 teams year in and year out. And you have to have some variance in the quality of opponents that you play. I'm going to make you special advisor to the SEC scheduling office. How would you use metrics to help set up SEC conference schedules? Let's just stay within that conference to make it easy. To set up conference schedules so that everyone plays relatively equal schedules year in and year out. Would you want to use and you can be as flexible as you want. You don't have to do this. One year we'll play this list of teams, and the next year we play the same list of teams, but just on an opposite home and home field.
Well, let me give you the most fair approach that I could come up with. So every single team, you give them a power rating over the last, call it, 3, 4, 5 years, and weight it to more recent years to carry more weight. And you can use ST Plus, you can use Kelley Ford ratings, you can use FPI, you can use whatever power rating you want, or probably the best practice would be to pick, 4 or 5 and aggregate them into kind of one true power rating. And so you have that then for every team. And then when you go to build a schedule, what you're doing is, as you're balancing the home and away games, you're trying to make every team schedule as close to net zero as possible, right? And so you're setting up the difficulty of opponents in an equal fashion across all 16 teams in the league. And so you can do that using power ratings in recent years, weighting the most recent year the highest. What I would, that's the fair way to do it. Now, if you want to try to maximize spots in the playoff, what you probably want to do, and now your TV partners aren't going to like this, and there's going to be athletic directors in your own conference that aren't going to like this, But what you kind of want to do is stack the deck in favor of the haves, in favor of the really good teams. So, you're talking about Texas, Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee, these teams that, in recent years have really pushed for CFP spots or won national championships. Give them the more favorable schedules, because we've seen the committee's going to punish you for losing games. If that's all they're going to punish you for, put your best teams in a position where they're not going to lose games. Don't make them play each other, because it's ultimately potentially going to hurt them. So that's the unfair way to do it that I certainly hope they wouldn't. But if that's your ultimate goal, is get teams in the playoffs, you would stack the schedule in such a way that would favor the teams that are going to potentially be your candidates to be either your AQ or your at-larges into the playoff.
Well, Kelley, if that's the way we're going to do it, why not put them in the ACC, where it's easy to get to the college football playoff every year, where the complaint is you don't play anybody, so you're not as forged in fire and tested as much over the course of the regular season. That might, in my mind, that might actually hurt some of these teams, because they're not forced to play better football.
All I know is the ACC got 2 teams in and the SEC only got 3. So clearly the committee is telling us that either the gap in quality between these 2 conferences is not that great, which I don't believe to be true, or they're saying, hey, there were a couple teams in the ACC who really minimized that number in the loss column. SEC teams, you guys beat each other up a little bit, picked up a few extra losses there, Alabama, Ole Miss, South Carolina, and we're going to punish you for that. Like, it's incredibly flawed logic, but at the end of the day, if that's how they're going to do this, if that's how they're going to judge resumes, you as a conference and as athletic directors that are in charge of creating these schedules and sign off on these schedules, you have to have that in mind as they're being created.
Kelley, when you talk about schedule difficulty, I love your website, kfordratings.com, and the schedule difficulty tab. However, I'm trying to figure out if the committee use schedule difficulty in their assessment of all of these teams and the top 25. When I look at your schedule difficulty top 30, and correct me if I'm wrong here, of 30 teams in the schedule difficulty tab, I see 1, 2, 3 teams that are in the college football playoff. Is that right?
Yeah, so what I need to do as I'm quickly searching through my own timeline here, Cole, I need to update that. What you're looking at on the website is preseason. And so I did a couple different times throughout the year post updated, let me see if I can find the most recent one, post updated charts for those. Mm-hmm. And as I go back here, I can't find it off the top of my head. But here we go. So as recently as November 14th, I had Oklahoma with the most difficult schedule. Georgia would be 1. No. I'm going quickly through these. Georgia right now is the only one in the top 30. Yeah, schedule difficulty. Georgia is the only one in the top 30 schedule difficulty that made the college football playoff based on the numbers that I ran after week 11 of this season. Again, I can go do a final one now. I have not done that yet, but yeah, schedule difficulty is something that I beat the drum of. I know a lot of people out there are on this train. We talk a lot about strength of schedule. That does not equate to schedule difficulty, but strength of schedule gets thrown around left and right. Schedule difficulty does not, and I believe that's a mistake that the committee and, quite frankly, the media masses are making a mistake as we try to evaluate resumes.
Kelley, this is something that you said that you were working on a couple of weeks or months back. One of the first times we had you on this season, you said you were working on a coaching metric and the effect that a head coach has on a given game or over the course of a season. Just wondering, if you've had more time to ponder that and how I guess sophisticated are you hoping to make that one of these days? Are you planning on including coordinators, first-year coaches, experienced coaches at new programs? Where do you envision this thing going?
Yeah, so that's a project that I've been working on for a couple of years now in the summers, and so I have not done any work on it during the season. My in-season content keeps me busy enough. However, now that is winding down, yes, getting back to the coaching grade project, as I'm calling it, is certainly something that I'm looking forward to. And it's in a really good spot. Yeah, we'll have some new data here from the 2024 season that I can incorporate, but I don't expect it to change my findings a whole lot because I do have a data set that was pretty significant already. So we'll get that input into, I believe, the 2025 preseason power rating for each of these teams. You asked about coordinators there. Yes, that is on the docket as well. I want to get the head coach piece in first. So coordinators will be coming. I've already started on that. I'm down the road, but not certainly at a point where it's going to get into the 2025 model. But I do think that head coaching grades will be in there in 2025. And to answer your next question, no, I don't know how I'm going to deal with Bill Belichick, who has come from the NFL with so much success, and how that will translate. I think he'll probably end up doing a good job. How do I quantify that into the model? I got to think about it a little bit more.
Kelley, my last question for you. When it comes to watchability this weekend, the choices are very limited. The entire country will be watching Army-Navy, which is a fantastic game. Do you have anything to leave our Tolos with in terms of Saturday's game, them sitting down to watch the only game this weekend, and any data, any information from Kelley Ford ratings that might make this game a little more appealing?
Yeah, let me look real quickly here as I pull up the projection graphic for these two teams. So I think there's something to keep in mind as you're watching this game. I do have Army with about a 58% win expectancy, so I expect it to be a one-score game. Ooh. The difference in this game for me is the Army offense that I have right now power rated number 31. The Navy defense is number 56. So, that 25 spot difference between the two of those is pretty significant. And I think that's where the advantage will be had. But you said it. This game is special. It stands alone on its own for a reason. And I love that about this game. I know we have a bowl game later that night now, which I don't think is right, but at least it's not at the same window. Keep in mind, though, with these two teams, what great seasons they had. Army was upgraded nearly 2 touchdowns from the beginning of the season to now. That is number 2 nationally behind only Indiana in terms of teams that have been upgraded the most from preseason to current. Navy, no slouch here. They've been upgraded 11 points since the preseason. That is top 5 nationally as well. So both of these teams, Army at 11-1, Navy at 8-3, have just had incredible years, really, really outstanding, and looking forward to seeing which of these two teams can come out on top and really be, right there with Indiana and Arizona State among the teams that overachieved the absolute most this year.
ACL tear in his right knee. College basketball, Clemson back in action Saturday, hosting
Diesel, not a lot of big games in college basketball tonight. However, some this week and weekend. Clemson, a huge matchup on Saturday against Memphis. But even with Clemson's 9-1 start, Diesel, they are not in the top 15. They are not in the top 10. They are in the top 20. Right now, the AP poll has Clemson at 16, 9-1 on the season. Excuse me. Mm-hmm. But obviously, a lot of time to go. I just believe that Clemson, off of this 9-1 start, I believe they are a top 15 team.
Yeah, I mean, this is another litmus test game. You beat Kentucky at your place. That's great. Kentucky is it's a great program.
Yeah, 8-1.
They're 8-1 on the season. You got to feel good about that. Memphis is a quad 1 game as of right now. Memphis is number 40 in the country in the KenPom. So you beat Memphis, and you have to start stacking data points. You can never look at just one data, especially in basketball, right?
Yeah.
When you play a lot of games, you get a lot more information. And a lot of these teams have played garbage schedules to this point. You're playing the Sisters of the Poor.
That's right.
You're playing the Mother Mary Margarets of Chapel U. So you don't know who a lot of these teams are. Some of them have massively inflated records by playing weak competition. And, this is how you learn who you are.
I've always said, Diesel, when you talk about college basketball in the first few weeks, to your point about playing, down or playing inferior competition, I've always said that you can't book your ticket to the dance in the first couple of weeks, but you certainly can lose it, right? You certainly can lose that ticket if you go out there and lay an egg and lose to, a Kentucky, Memphis, all of a sudden drop one or two more. You're a 500 basketball team. Those early losses will come to haunt you later down the road in March.
Yeah, you take a weird quad 2, quad 3 loss early in the season, and they will absolutely hold that against you. And it doesn't matter to them that, all right, well, you were both 5 games into the season. You're all developing. Doesn't matter. Your job is to win those games. If you have the superior talent, your job is to win those basketball games. Isn't it weird, Cole, that college football is one of the only sports that we are watching week 1 with the same amount of gusto as we are in week number 12?
Yeah.
We don't do that in college baseball. You kind of let the season ease in, and by the end of the season, the last 25 games or so, and the conference tournaments, that's when you lock into college baseball. Yeah. It's kind of the same way with college basketball, but no, man, these out-of-conference matchups in college football, they matter just as much at the beginning of the season as they do at the end of the season, and that's what makes the sport unique.
AP Top 25, Tennessee, number 1, 8-0 in the country, or 8-0, number 1 in the country. Auburn 2, Iowa State 3, Duke 4, Kentucky 5, Marquette 6, Alabama 7, Gonzaga 8, Florida 9, Kansas 10, rounding out the top 15, Purdue, Oregon, Oklahoma, Michigan, and Houston. That is the top 15. Clemson just on the outside of 15, like I said, at Clemson, or at 16, with one spot separating them between Clemson and Houston. But to your point, they'll be able to find out. So, look, so many good basketball teams in the top 25, a lot of SEC teams as well.
Yeah.
Good grief, that conference is loaded.
Yeah, I'm seeing Auburn, Tennessee, Alabama, Florida, Kentucky. Let's see who else. So you got to scroll down for what it's kind
Oklahoma.
of a top heavy league. There's a lot of good teams in there, but
there's 6 in the top 15.
Well, I'm looking at the KenPom ratings right now. The rankings change because that's somebody's opinion. Oklahoma is a good basketball team. They're currently sitting in 44th place in the KenPom. We'll talk about all things that we didn't get a chance to talk about today. Dive back into the playoffs, and of course, the best Christmas movie bracket tomorrow on Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryce and Tolos.